They left her to die in the dust, broken, bleeding, betrayed. Two ruthless men thought they could steal everything she had with their fists and threats. But Anna Caldwell wasn't just fighting for land. She was fighting for her father's memory, for justice, and for her very soul. This is the story of a woman who refused to bow even when the West showed her its cruelest face. Stay with me until the end and comment what city you're watching from. I want to see how far Anna's story travels across this world. The sun had no mercy that August afternoon. It hung in the Oklahoma sky like a copper coin hammered flat, beating down on the endless prairie with the kind of heat that made the earth crack and the horizon shimmer like water that was never really there. The grasshoppers had given up their singing. Even the wind had quit, leaving nothing but stillness and the smell of dry earth and dying grass. Anna Caldwell stood on the porch of her father's ranch house, one hand shading her eyes as she watched the dust cloud approaching from the east. She'd been expecting them. In her gut, she'd known they would come eventually. Men like Cole and Mason Reed didn't take no for an answer, and she'd been saying no for 3 months straight. The ranch stretched out behind her 240 acres of Oklahoma red dirt and stubborn hope. Her father had died working this land, and before that her mother had been buried beneath the cottonwood tree by the creek. Every fence post, every stone in the foundation, every drop of sweat that had salted this soil, it was Caldwell blood and Caldwell bones. And the Reed brothers wanted to take it all. Anna was 26 years old, which meant she was old enough to know exactly how cruel the world could be to a woman alone. She'd spent the last year since her father's death learning to shoot straight men, fence break horses, and stare down creditors who thought a female landowner was nothing more than a temporary inconvenience. She'd survived drought grasshoppers and the bank manager's condescending smiles. But the Reed brothers were different. They didn't smile. They didn't pretend to be gentlemen. They wanted her land because it sat right between their two properties, completing an empire of cattle and corruption that stretched from the Canadian River to the Kansas border. With the Caldwell Ranch, they'd control the only reliable water source for 50 miles. Without it, their ambition had limits, and the Reed brothers hated limits. The dust cloud grew closer, resolving into two riders on horseback, moving with the unhurried confidence of men who believed the world owed them whatever they wanted. Anna's hand drifted to the rifle leaning against the porch rail. She'd cleaned it that morning, loaded it with steady hands, and promised herself she wouldn't hesitate if it came to that. But she also knew that killing a man even in self-defense would bring the law down on her faster than it would on them. Justice had a way of seeing things differently when a woman pulled the trigger. The riders slowed as they approached the house, their horses' hooves raising small puffs of dust with each step. Cole Reed was the older of the two, somewhere in his mid-40s, with a face like weathered leather and eyes the color of dirty ice. He wore a black hat and a vest over his shirt despite the heat, and he carried himself like a man who'd never been told no by anyone who mattered. Mason Reed was younger, maybe 30, but meaner. Where Cole had the calculation of a businessman, Mason had the cruelty of a man who enjoyed watching things break. He had their father's build, broad shoulders, thick arms, hands like clubs. And he'd used them before. Everyone in 3 counties knew about the Mexican farmer who disputed a property line with Mason and ended up losing 3 teeth and the use of his left eye. They reined in their horses about 20 feet from the porch, close enough to talk, close enough to intimidate, not quite close enough for Anna to claim they were an immediate threat. "Miss Caldwell," Cole said, touching the brim of his hat in a mockery of politeness. "Hot day to be standing in the sun. Might we come inside and discuss business in a civilized manner?" "We can discuss it right here," Anna said. Her voice came out steady, which pleased her. "And there's nothing to discuss anyway. I already gave you my answer." "That was 3 months ago," Cole said. "I'm hoping you've had time to reconsider. We're prepared to be generous. $4,000 for the property. That's well above fair market value for a ranch this size, especially with the drought we've been having." "It's not for sale." Mason shifted in his saddle and Anna saw his jaw clench. "You can't work this land alone," he said. "You got no hands, no husband, no sons to help. Come winter, you'll be begging someone to take this place off your hands, and we won't be offering $4,000 then." "Then I guess I'll have to manage," Anna said. "Now, if there's nothing else—" "There is something else," Cole interrupted. His voice had lost its veneer of courtesy. Your father owed money all over town, Miss Caldwell. The bank, the feed store, the blacksmith he died with debts that now belong to you. We've been buying up those debts, every single one, which means you owe us, and we're calling in what's owed. Anna felt her stomach drop, but she kept her face neutral. My father's debts were settled with the estate. Not all of them, Cole said, pulling a folded paper from his vest pocket. We got documentation right here, $3,200 due immediately, or the property becomes ours to settle the debt. That's a lie, Anna said flatly. Show me the documentation. Cole unfolded the paper, and even from the porch, Anna could see it was covered in official-looking stamps and signatures. Whether it was genuine or forged, she couldn't tell from this distance. And that was the problem, wasn't it? These men had money and lawyers and judges who owed them favors. They could create whatever truth they wanted on paper. I'll need to have my lawyer review that, Anna said. You don't have a lawyer, Mason said with a cold smile. Old Henderson dropped you as a client last month, said you couldn't pay his fees. That was true, though Anna hated that they knew it. She'd had to let Samuel Henderson go because she'd needed that money for seed and feed. She'd gambled that she could handle her own affairs at least until the harvest came in, if there was a harvest. I'll find another lawyer, Anna said. Take all the time you need, Cole said, folding the paper and tucking it back in his vest. But the debt is due in 30 days. After that, we start foreclosure proceedings. Or, he paused, letting the word hang in the hot air. Or you can save us all a lot of trouble and sign the property over now. We'll forgive the debt and give you $2,000 cash to start fresh somewhere else. Might be you'd prefer city life. Guthrie or Oklahoma City. A young woman like you could find a husband, have a family. This is no life for you, Anna. No life at all. The use of her first name, that false intimacy, made her skin crawl. I'll see you in court, she said. Now get off my property. For a long moment, neither man moved. They sat their horses like monuments, and Anna could feel the weight of their stares, the unspoken threat in their stillness. Then Cole nodded slowly. 30 days? He said. Think carefully about your situation, Miss Caldwell. This land isn't worth dying for. They turned their horses and rode away, not hurrying, taking their time like they owned the road and everything on either side of it. Anna watched until they were nothing but a dust cloud, again diminishing toward the eastern horizon. Then she sat down hard on the porch steps, her legs suddenly shaky, and let herself breathe. She'd known this day would come. The Reed brothers had been circling like buzzards since her father's funeral, making offers, spreading rumors, turning old friends into nervous acquaintances who crossed the street to avoid her in town. They wanted this land, and they'd proven over the years that they would do whatever it took to get what they wanted. But Anna had something they didn't account for. She had nowhere else to go. This ranch was all she had left of her family, all she had left of the life she'd known. Her mother was buried here. Her father's last words had been about this place. Don't let them take it, Anna. Don't let them win. She wouldn't, even if it killed her. The sun was setting when Anna finished her evening chores. She'd fed the chickens, checked on the 3 remaining horses in the barn, and pumped water for the kitchen garden that was barely clinging to life in the drought. Her shirt was soaked with sweat, her hands were blistered, and her back ached from hauling feed sacks that should have been carried by hired hands she couldn't afford. But the work was done, and there was satisfaction in that. She was washing up at the pump when she heard the horses again. For a moment she thought the Reed brothers had come back, and her heart jumped into her throat. But as she turned, wiping water from her eyes, she realized these were different riders. 3 of them this time, coming from the west, riding hard like they had someplace to be. Anna's hand found the rifle she'd leaned against the pump handle. She didn't raise it, but she didn't let it go either. The riders slowed as they approached, and in the dying light, Anna could make out their faces. She recognized one of them, Tom Bridger, who worked as a foreman on the Reed brothers' ranch. The other 2 were younger men she'd seen around town but didn't know by name. Ranch hands, working men, the kind who did what they were told and didn't ask questions. Tom raised his hand in a gesture that might have been greeting or might have been apology. Miss Caldwell, he called out, we don't want any trouble. Then ride on, Anna said. Her voice was steady, but inside her pulse hammered. 3 men coming at sunset right after the Reed brothers had threatened her. This wasn't a social call. We got a message from Mr. Cole Reed, Tom said. He wasn't smiling. If anything, he looked uncomfortable, like a man doing something he didn't quite agree with, but didn't have the courage to refuse. He says you got until tomorrow at noon to sign the papers. He's waiting in town at the lawyer's office. If you don't come, he says there'll be consequences. Consequences? Anna repeated. Is that the word he used? Tom looked away. More or less. Tell Cole Reed that I'll see him in court with my lawyer present. Tell him that I don't respond to threats. And tell him that if he sends men to my property again, I'll start shooting first and asking questions later. One of the younger men laughed a nervous, ugly sound. You and what army lady? You can't even keep this place running. Look at it. Half the fences are down the barns losing shingles, and your fields are nothing but dust and dead grass. You're finished here. You just don't know it yet. I know exactly where I stand, Anna said, and now she did raise the rifle, not pointing it at anyone, but making sure they all saw it. Now get off my land before I show you how well I shoot. Tom held up both hands. Easy, Miss Caldwell. We're going. Just think about what you're doing. The Reed brothers don't give second chances. They turned their horses and rode away faster this time, like they were glad to be leaving. Anna watched them go, the rifle heavy in her hands, her heart beating so hard she could hear it in her ears. She stood there until full darkness fell, and the stars came out brilliant and cold and indifferent. Then she went inside, barred the door, loaded both her rifles and her father's old pistol, and sat in the kitchen with the lamp burning low and her finger never far from a trigger. She didn't sleep that night. Every sound made her jump, the wind rattling a shutter, a coyote howling in the distance, the old house settling on its foundation. She made coffee when the fear threatened to overwhelm her, and she watched the darkness through the window, waiting for shapes that never came. But she knew they would come. Maybe not tonight, maybe not tomorrow. But they would come because men like the Reed brothers didn't make threats. They weren't willing to back up with action. And when they came, Anna would be ready. Or at least she would try to be. Dawn came slowly, painting the prairie in shades of pink and gold that were almost beautiful enough to make Anna forget how tired and scared she was. Almost. She made breakfast eggs from her chicken's bread she'd baked 2 days ago, coffee strong enough to strip paint, and ate it standing at the window watching the horizon. No riders yet. No dust clouds. Just another day in the Oklahoma Territory where survival was its own kind of victory. After breakfast, she went outside to check on the animals. The chickens were fine, pecking at the feed she scattered for them, with single-minded determination. The horses nickered when they saw her, hoping for extra oats she didn't have to give them. She stroked their noses and murmured apologies, then moved on to check the fences. That's when she saw it. The western fence line which bordered the Reed brothers' property had been cut in 3 places. Neat, deliberate cuts that would let cattle through or let men through if they wanted to claim that Anna's property wasn't properly secured. It was sabotage, plain and simple, and it was just the beginning. Anna stared at the cut wires, feeling something cold and hard settle in her chest. This was escalation. This was the Reed brothers telling her that they were done being patient, done pretending to be civilized. This was the start of the war she'd been dreading. She spent the morning repairing the fence, working in the growing heat with wire cutters and new wire from the barn, her hands bleeding through her gloves by the time she finished. It was exhausting, brutal work, and she knew it was probably pointless. They'd just cut it again. But she couldn't leave it undone. That would be surrender. She was finishing the last repair when she heard the horse. Just one this time. Coming from the road, not from the Reed property. Anna straightened her back, screaming in protest, and shaded her eyes to see who was coming. It was a woman. Older, maybe 60, riding a sway-backed mare that looked as tired as Anna felt. She wore a faded calico dress and a bonnet, and as she got closer, Anna recognized her, Sarah Mitchell, who ran the boarding house in town and had been friends with Anna's mother 20 years ago. "Mrs. Mitchell," Anna called out, genuinely surprised. Sarah hadn't visited the ranch since the funeral, and Anna had assumed the older woman had fallen into the camp of people who decided associating with Anna Caldwell was bad for business. Sarah dismounted with some difficulty and walked over, her face grave. "Anna," she said, "I had to come warn you." "Warn me about what?" "About tonight." Sarah glanced around nervously as if she expected someone to be listening from the empty prairie. I was cleaning the rooms at the boarding house this morning, and I overheard Cole and Mason Reed talking in the hallway. They didn't know I was there. Anna, they're planning to come here tonight. They said if you won't sign the papers willingly, they'll make you sign them, or they'll make sure you can't refuse anymore. Anna felt her blood run cold. What does that mean? Make sure I can't refuse? Sarah's eyes filled with tears. I don't know exactly, but the way they were talking, Anna, I think they mean to hurt you, to scare you so badly that you'll do whatever they want, maybe worse than just scare you. Did they say what time? After midnight. They said something about making sure nobody would see them coming or going. Anna, you need to get out of here. Come stay with me in town or ride to the sheriff. The sheriff won't help me, Anna said bitterly. Bill Crawford has been taking Reed money for years. He won't lift a finger against them unless he absolutely has to. Then leave. Just for tonight. Go somewhere safe. Anna looked at Sarah, this kind, frightened woman who'd risked the Reed brothers' anger just to warn her, and felt a surge of gratitude so strong it made her throat tight. But she shook her head. I can't leave, Mrs. Mitchell. If I run now, I'll never stop running. They'll take this place and I'll have nothing. I have to stand my ground. Stand your ground, Sarah's voice rose in disbelief. Anna, these men are dangerous. They've hurt people before. They killed a man in Arkansas and everyone knows it, but they paid enough money to make it go away. You can't fight them alone. I'm not planning to fight them, Anna said, though she wasn't entirely sure that was true. I'm planning to be ready for them. There's a difference. Sarah grabbed Anna's arm, her grip surprisingly strong. Please. I promised your mother I'd look after you if anything ever happened to her. I failed at that these past years, and I'm sorry. But I'm here now, and I'm begging you don't throw your life away for a piece of land. It's not just land, Anna said quietly. It's all I have left of them. My parents, my family. Everything I am is tied to this place. If I lose it, I lose myself. They stood there in the hot sun, two women in a world that didn't value women's choices or women's courage, and Sarah's face crumpled with defeat. She knew there was no arguing with that kind of determination. She'd probably felt it herself once before life had taught her that determination wasn't always enough. Then God be with you, Sarah whispered. She pulled a small pistol from her pocket, an old percussion cap model that looked like it hadn't been fired in years. Take this. It's not much, but it's better than nothing. Anna took the pistol, checking the load automatically. It was loaded, though the powder was probably old enough to be unreliable. Still, it was a weapon, and it was a gift given with love. And that meant something. Thank you, Anna said, for warning me, for caring enough to take the risk. Sarah climbed back onto her tired mare, wiping her eyes. Your mother was my best friend. You look just like her, you know. Same stubborn chin, same fire in your eyes. She'd be proud of you. She rode away before Anna could respond, her old mare plodding back toward town, and Anna stood holding the pistol and trying not to cry. But the afternoon dragged by with agonizing slowness. Anna prepared as best she could, checking and rechecking her weapons, loading extra ammunition within easy reach, positioning herself so she'd have clear lines of sight to all the approaches to the house. She nailed boards over the downstairs windows, turning the house into a fortress, or a prison, she wasn't sure which. She thought about riding to town and confronting the Reed brothers in broad daylight where witnesses might make a difference. She thought about burning the place down herself rather than letting them take it. She thought about running the way Sarah had urged her to do and starting over somewhere else with nothing but the clothes on her back. But in the end, she stayed. Because this was who she was. Anna Caldwell, daughter of James and Mary Caldwell, owner of 240 acres of Oklahoma's stubborn hope. And she would not be moved. As the sun set, she ate a cold supper of beans and hardtack, forcing food down a throat that didn't want to swallow. She'd need her strength. Whatever came next, she'd need every ounce of strength she had. Darkness fell like a blanket, and the stars came out. Anna sat in the kitchen with a single candle burning, creating a small circle of light in an ocean of darkness. She had the rifle across her lap, the pistol Sarah had given her tucked in her belt, and her father's old Colt on the table beside her. And she waited. Midnight came and went. 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock. Anna fought to stay awake, splashing water on her face, pacing the kitchen, forcing her eyes to stay open. Maybe Sarah had been wrong. Maybe the Reed brothers had changed their minds. Maybe the sound of horses. Anna's heart slammed into her throat. She blew out the candle and moved to the window, peering through a gap in the boards. In the starlight, she could make out 3 riders approaching the house. No 4. They were coming slowly, quietly, trying not to make noise. But in the prairie silence, every hoofbeat sounded like thunder. They stopped about 50 yards from the house. Anna watched as they dismounted, tying their horses to her fence. They were carrying something, torches, she realized with horror. They were carrying torches and what looked like cans of kerosene. They were going to burn her out. Anna's hand shook as she gripped the rifle. She could shoot. She could start shooting right now, drop 1 or 2 of them before they even knew what was happening. But then what? She'd be a murderer, and the law wouldn't care that she'd been defending her property. The law would side with the Reed brothers the way it always did. Unless they made the first move. She watched as the men spread out surrounding the house. One of them, she thought it was Cole, but it was hard to tell in the darkness, called out, "Miss Caldwell, we know you're in there. Come out peacefully and sign the papers and nobody gets hurt." Anna didn't answer. Her finger rested on the trigger and she tracked Cole's movement through the gap in the boards. "Anna," Mason's voice this time from the other side of the house. "Don't be stupid. We got you surrounded. You can't win this." Still, Anna said nothing. Let them wonder. Let them worry. "Have it your way," Cole said. His voice had changed, gone flat and cold. "Light it up." Anna saw the torches bloom to life, 4 points of flame in the darkness. The men moved toward the house, and Anna knew she had seconds to make a choice. She fired. The rifle shot cracked across the prairie like lightning, and the torch closest to the house dropped as the man carrying it yelped and dove for cover. Anna hadn't aimed to kill, she'd shot for the ground near his feet, but the message was clear: come closer, and the next shot would be center mass. "She's shooting," someone yelled, one of the ranch hands, voice high with panic. "Jesus Christ, she's actually shooting. Fall back," Cole's voice angry now. "Fall back and surround the barn. She can't watch all directions at once." Anna ran to the back window, tearing away the board she'd nailed there, and saw 2 men running toward the barn. She fired again and again, the rifle kicking against her shoulder. She didn't hit anyone she was shooting in the dark at moving targets, but she made them think twice about their approach. Then she heard the sound of breaking glass from the front of the house. They'd thrown something through the window, and a second later she smelled it: kerosene. Anna ran back to the front room just as the flames caught. The curtains went up first, the fire racing up the fabric with terrifying speed. Within seconds, the whole wall was burning, and the heat drove Anna back toward the kitchen. They were burning her out. She was going to have to run, or she was going to die in this house. Anna grabbed her father's pistol, tucked the rifle under her arm, and threw open the back door. She burst out into the night, running for the barn where her horses were, praying she could saddle one and escape before they caught her. She made it maybe 20 feet. The blow came out of nowhere, a fist to the side of her head that sent her sprawling in the dirt. The rifle flew from her hands and stars exploded behind her eyes. She rolled, trying to get up, trying to find her weapons, but someone kicked her in the ribs and drove all the air from her lungs. "Got her!" Mason Reed's voice, triumphant and cruel. "Cole, I got her!" Rough hands grabbed Anna's arms, hauling her to her feet. She fought, kicking and scratching and biting, but there were too many of them. 4 men, all stronger than her, all working together to pin her down. Cole walked up, his face illuminated by the burning house behind them. He was smiling. "Well now," he said. "That was exciting, but foolish, Miss Caldwell. Very foolish indeed." Anna spat blood at his feet. "Go to hell." The smile disappeared. Cole nodded to Mason, and Anna barely had time to register the movement before Mason's fist slammed into her stomach. She doubled over, gasping, held upright only by the hands gripping her arms. "We tried to do this the civilized way," Cole said. "We offered you good money. We gave you chances. But you're too stubborn for your own good. So now we'll do it the hard way." He pulled out a folded document, the deed to her property, and a pen. "Sign it." "Never," Anna gasped out. Mason hit her again, this time in the face. Anna's head snapped back and she tasted blood in her mouth. The world tilted sideways, but she stayed conscious through sheer force of will. "Sign it," Cole repeated. "Never." Another blow, and another. Anna stopped counting after the third hit. Pain became her entire world, her ribs, her face, her arms. where they gripped her so tightly she could feel bruises forming. But she wouldn't sign. She'd die before she signed. Maybe she was going to die anyway. "Boss," one of the ranch hands said nervously. "Boss, this is getting out of hand. We said we'd scare her, not—" "Shut up," Mason snarled. He pulled his own pistol from his belt and pressed it against Anna's temple. "Last chance, lady. Sign the paper or I'll blow your brains all over this property. Your choice." Anna looked up at Cole through swollen eyes. Behind him, her house was fully engulfed now, flames reaching for the sky, her entire life burning to ash. Everything her parents had built. Everything she'd tried to save. And she realized in that moment that she'd already lost. They could kill her, or she could sign the paper, but either way, the Reed brothers won. That's how it worked in this world. Men with money and guns always won. But at least she could deny them the satisfaction of her willing submission. "Do it," she whispered. "Pull the trigger. Because I will never sign." For just a moment, something like respect flickered across Cole's face. Then it was gone, replaced by cold fury. He nodded to Mason. "Teach her a lesson she won't forget." What happened next would haunt Anna's nightmares for months to come. They beat her methodically, professionally, with the practiced efficiency of men who'd done this before. Mason's fists, boots to her ribs when she fell. The sharp pain of a knife cutting through her shirt, not stabbing, just cutting, marking her skin with shallow wounds that would scar. Anna tried to fight back. She tried to scream. But there was no one to hear her out here on the empty prairie, and her strength was nothing compared to theirs. At some point, she stopped feeling the blows. Her body went numb, or perhaps her mind simply refused to process any more pain. She was dimly aware of being dragged somewhere, of ropes being tied around her wrists, of being left in the dirt, while voices argued above her. "Just leave her here. Finish it," said Weed. The voices faded in and out like a bad signal on a telegraph wire. Anna tried to focus, tried to hold on to consciousness, but the darkness kept pulling at her, promising relief from the pain if she'd just let go. And finally, she did. When Anna opened her eyes again, the world was painted in shades of gray and pink. Dawn. She'd survived the night. For a moment, she couldn't remember why that was surprising. Then the pain hit her in waves, her ribs, her face, her arms, her entire body screaming in agony, and memory came flooding back. The Reed brothers, the fire, the beating. Anna tried to move and discovered her hands were still tied behind her back. She was lying in the dirt about 50 yards from where her house had stood. The house was gone now, nothing but a blackened foundation and smoking timbers. Everything she'd owned, every memory of her parents, every piece of her past, gone. She could see the barn in the distance. It was still standing, which meant her horses were probably alive. Small mercy. Her throat was raw, her lips were split, and when she tried to move, her ribs sent jolts of white-hot pain through her chest. At least 2 of them were broken, maybe more. She might have internal injuries. She might be dying right now, slowly bleeding inside where she couldn't see. And she was alone. The Reed brothers were gone. They'd beaten her, destroyed her home, and left her here to die of exposure or thirst or her injuries. Problem solved as far as they were concerned. Anna closed her eyes and tried to think. She had to get free. Had to get to water. Had to survive long enough to make them pay for this. But the ropes around her wrists were tight, and her fingers were numb, and when she tried to sit up, the pain was so intense that she vomited into the dirt beside her. The sun was rising, and it was going to be another scorching day, and she had no shelter, no water, and no strength left. This is how I die, Anna thought. Not fighting, not standing, just lying in the dirt like an animal. No. She wouldn't accept that. Couldn't accept that. Anna rolled onto her side, gasping with pain, and began to inch her way across the ground toward the barn. Every movement was agony. Every breath felt like knives in her chest. But she kept moving because the alternative was giving up, and Anna Caldwell had never given up on anything in her life. She wasn't about to start now. She'd made it maybe 10 feet when she heard the sound of a horse. Anna's heart lurched. They were coming back. The Reed brothers were coming back to finish what they'd started. She tried to move faster, tried to reach the pistol she'd dropped somewhere in the chaos of last night, but her body wouldn't cooperate. She could barely move at all now, and the sound of hoofbeats was getting closer, and she realized with crystal clarity that this was it. This was the end. "I'm sorry, Mama," she thought. "I'm sorry, Papa. I tried." The horse stopped nearby. Anna heard boots hitting the ground, heard footsteps approaching. She forced her eyes open, determined to face her death, with her eyes open with defiance even in this final moment. But the face looking down at her wasn't Cole or Mason Reed. It was a stranger, a man she'd never seen before with sun-weathered skin and eyes the color of storm clouds. He wore trail clothes, dusty denim, and a worn leather vest, and he was staring at her with an expression of absolute horror. "Jesus Christ," the man whispered. "What happened to you?" Anna tried to answer, but her voice wouldn't work. She tried to tell him to run to get away before the Reed brothers came back to save himself. But all that came out was a sound like a wounded animal. The man dropped to his knees beside her, his hands hovering over her like he wasn't sure where to touch without causing more pain. "Okay," he said, and his voice was gentle, the voice of someone who'd seen suffering before and knew how to respond. "Okay, I've got you. I'm going to help you, but I need to know who did this." "Are they coming back?" Anna managed to shake her head. "Not coming back. They thought she was dead. They'd left her here to die." "All right," the man said. He pulled a knife from his belt, and Anna flinched, but he just cut the ropes around her wrists, freeing her hands. "Can you tell me your name?" "Anna," she croaked. "Anna Caldwell." "Ethan Monroe," the man said. "I'm a rancher from up north. I was riding through when I saw the smoke from your house." "Anna, I'm going to look at your injuries. All right, I need to see how bad you're hurt." His hands were careful, professional, like he'd tended wounds before. He checked her ribs first, then her arms and legs, his face growing grimmer with each discovery. Finally, he looked at the cuts on her abdomen where Mason had used the knife. "I need to remove your shirt to see these wounds properly," Ethan said, his voice carefully neutral. "Is that all right? I'm not going to hurt you." Anna nodded, beyond modesty now, beyond caring about anything except survival. Ethan carefully lifted the ruined fabric away from her skin, and she heard him suck in a sharp breath. "Who did this to you?" he asked again, and now there was steel in his voice, cold fury beneath the gentleness. "Reed brothers," Anna whispered. "Cole and Mason Reed. They wanted my land. And you refused to sell." "Yes." Ethan was silent for a long moment. Then he said very quietly, "You're the bravest damn fool I've ever met, Anna Caldwell. Or maybe the bravest damn woman. I haven't decided which." Despite everything, the pain, the fear, the loss, Anna felt her lips try to form a smile. It hurt too much to complete. "I'm going to get you to town," Ethan said. "To the doctor. These injuries are serious. You need proper medical care." "No," Anna managed. "Reed brothers. Control the town. They'll what, finish the job?" Ethan's jaw tightened. "Over my dead body. Anna, listen to me. You need a doctor and you need the law. What they did to you, this is attempted murder. They have to answer for it." "Law won't help," Anna said bitterly. "Sheriff's on their payroll." "Then we'll go over his head. Federal marshal, territorial governor if we have to. But first we need to keep you alive." Ethan stood up and whistled. His horse trotted over a big bay gelding with intelligent eyes. "I'm going to lift you onto my horse. It's going to hurt. I'm sorry, but there's no way around it." Anna nodded, bracing herself. But nothing could have prepared her for the pain of being lifted, her broken ribs grinding against each other, her vision going white around the edges. She bit down on a scream, tasting blood again, and felt Ethan's arms steady around her. "I've got you," he said. "Just hold on. Hold on for me, Anna." He mounted behind her, supporting her weight against his chest, and turned the horse toward town. As they rode away and Anna looked back once at the burned remains of her home, at the land her parents had loved, at everything she'd fought so hard to keep. It was gone. All gone. But she was alive. And as long as she was alive, there was still a chance for justice. Still a chance to make the Reed brothers pay for what they'd done. Ethan must have felt her body tense, must have sensed the thought running through her mind, because he said quietly, "Don't you die on me now, Anna Caldwell. You've got too much fight left in you. I can feel it." Anna let her head fall back against his shoulder, let herself be carried, and whispered words that were half prayer, half promise. "Not like this. I won't die like this. And in the growing heat of the morning sun, with a stranger's arms around her and pain singing through every nerve, Anna Caldwell held on to consciousness and held on to hope. And most of all, she held on to her rage. Because rage was going to keep her alive long enough to see this through. The Reed brothers had made a mistake. They'd left her breathing. And that Anna thought as the darkness pulled at her again was going to be the biggest mistake they'd ever made. The ride to town was a blur of pain and heat, and the steady rhythm of hoofbeats against hard-packed earth. Anna drifted in and out of consciousness, each jolt of the horse sending fresh agony through her broken ribs. She was aware of Ethan's arms around her, holding her upright, keeping her from falling. She was aware of his voice, low and steady, talking to her even when she couldn't respond. "Stay with me, Anna. We're almost there. Just a little further. You're doing fine. You're going to be fine." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to believe that anything would ever be fine again. But every breath was a struggle, and the world kept tilting sideways, and somewhere in the back of her mind a small voice kept whispering that maybe it would be easier to just let go, to stop fighting, to surrender to the darkness that kept reaching for her with soft, promising hands. But every time that voice grew louder, she'd remember the look on Cole Reed's face when he'd told Mason to teach her a lesson. She'd remember the sound of her house burning, the smell of kerosene and smoke. She'd remember Mason's fist driving into her stomach, his boot connecting with her ribs, the casual cruelty in his eyes as he'd beaten her. And the rage would flare up again, hot and sustaining, giving her something to hold on to when everything else was slipping away. They rode into town just after 8 in the morning. Anna was barely conscious by then, her body slack against Ethan's chest, her breathing shallow and labored. She was dimly aware of voices rising around them, of people stopping in the street to stare, of Ethan's voice cutting through the murmurs like a knife. "Where's the doctor?" "This woman needs help now." Someone pointed toward a building on the main street. Ethan urged his horse forward, and Anna felt herself being lifted down, felt strong hands carrying her through a doorway into blessed shade. The light was dimmer here and cooler, and she could hear a new voice, older, authoritative, concerned. "Good Lord, put her on the examination table. Carefully, carefully. What happened to her?" "She was beaten," Ethan said, and there was that steel in his voice again, that cold fury. "Left for dead out at what used to be a ranch. The house was burned to the ground." "Who did this?" the doctor asked. Anna forced her eyes open. She needed to see who was asking, needed to know if this was someone she could trust or another person on the Reed brothers' payroll. The doctor was a man in his 60s with steel gray hair and spectacles perched on his nose. She recognized him vaguely, Dr. Benjamin Walsh, who'd practiced in town for 20 years. He'd set her father's broken arm once, years ago. Her father had said he was a good man, honest and fair. She hoped her father had been right. "Reed brothers," Anna whispered. Her voice was barely audible, but Dr. Walsh leaned in close to hear. "Cole and Mason Reed. They did this." The doctor's face went pale. He glanced at Ethan, then back at Anna. "Miss Caldwell, that's a serious accusation. The Reed brothers are—" "I know who they are," Anna said, and some of her strength came back with her anger. "I know what they are, and I know what they did to me. They tried to make me sign over my land. When I refused, they beat me and left me to die." Dr. Walsh was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, let me examine your injuries. Mr. Monroe, Ethan Monroe. Mr. Monroe, you'll need to wait outside while I examine her." "No," Anna said quickly. The thought of being alone, even with the doctor, even in town, made her heart race with panic. "He stays, please." Dr. Walsh looked at Ethan, who shrugged. "If it makes her feel safer, I'll stay. I'll turn my back if modesty requires it, but I'm not leaving her alone. Not after what she's been through." The doctor nodded again. "Very well. Mr. Monroe, you can stand by the window. Miss Caldwell, I'm going to need to examine your injuries thoroughly. Some of this will hurt. I'll be as gentle as I can." The examination was excruciating. Dr. Walsh probed her ribs with careful fingers, checked her abdomen for signs of internal bleeding, cleaned and dressed the knife wounds on her stomach. Anna gritted her teeth and tried not to scream, tried not to think about Mason's hands on her, tried not to remember the feeling of helplessness as they'd held her down. 3 broken ribs, Dr. Walsh said finally. Severe bruising over most of your torso and face. These cuts are shallow, but will scar. You're lucky if luck is the right word for any of this. Another few hours without water in this heat, and you might have died from exposure alone. As it is, you'll need several weeks to heal, possibly months before you're back to full strength. I don't have months, Anna said. I need to file charges, need to see the sheriff. The sheriff isn't going to help you, Dr. Walsh said quietly. I'm sorry, Miss Caldwell, but that's the truth. Bill Crawford won't cross the Reed brothers. Not for you, not for anyone. Then I'll go to the federal marshal, the territorial governor. Someone has to… Anna? Dr. Walsh's voice was gentle but firm. You need to rest. You need to heal. Pushing yourself right now could kill you. They already tried to kill me, Anna said. Her voice was rising, edging toward hysteria, and she couldn't seem to stop it. They burned my house. They beat me. They destroyed everything I have. And you want me to just rest to let them get away with it? No, Ethan said from his place by the window. He turned to face her, and his eyes were hard as flint. We want you to be smart about this. If you go after them now, when you can barely stand, they'll finish what they started. But if you heal first, if you get strong again, then you'll have a chance to make them pay. And how long will that take? Anna demanded. Weeks, months. How long before they're so confident they got away with it that bringing charges becomes impossible? The evidence is all over your body, Dr. Walsh said. I'll document every injury, every bruise, every cut, every broken bone. That documentation won't disappear just because you take time to heal. Anna wanted to argue more, but a wave of dizziness washed over her, and she had to close her eyes and focus on breathing. The doctor was right. She could barely stay conscious. How was she supposed to fight the Reed brothers like this? But the thought of waiting, of giving them more time to cover their tracks, to intimidate witnesses, to solidify their version of events, it made her want to scream. Where will she stay? Ethan asked. She can't go back to her ranch. There's nothing left there. The boarding house, Dr. Walsh suggested. Sarah Mitchell runs a respectable establishment. She'd take Miss Caldwell in. Anna shook her head immediately, regretting the movement, as pain spiked through her skull. Mrs. Mitchell already risked herself warning me. I won't put her in more danger by staying there. The Reed brothers know we're friends. They'd retaliate against her. Then where? The doctor asked. The room fell silent. Anna had no family in town, no close friends who weren't already afraid of the Reed brothers' influence. She had nothing and no one. She can stay with me, Ethan said. Both Anna and Dr. Walsh turned to look at him. Ethan stood by the window, backlit by the morning sun, his expression unreadable. Mr. Monroe, Dr. Walsh said carefully, that would be highly irregular. Miss Caldwell's reputation. Her reputation. Ethan's voice was sharp. She's been beaten half to death, and you're worried about her reputation. I have a ranch about 30 miles north of here. It's remote defensible, and the Reed brothers don't know me from Adam. She'll be safe there while she heals. I can't ask you to do that, Anna said. You don't even know me. You don't owe me anything. You're right, Ethan said. I don't know you, and I don't owe you anything, but I know what's right and what's wrong. What was done to you was wrong. And if nobody else in this town is willing to stand up and say so, then I guess I'll have to be the one who does. Anna stared at him, this stranger who'd appeared out of nowhere, like an answer to a prayer she hadn't known she was praying. She wanted to refuse, wanted to maintain some shred of independence, some dignity. But the truth was, she had nowhere else to go. No other options. No other hope. All right, she said quietly. Thank you, doctor. Walsh looked between them, clearly unhappy with the arrangement, but unable to offer a better alternative. Miss Caldwell will need continued medical care. I'll prepare instructions for treating her injuries. And Mr. Monroe, I'm holding you to your word. This is about her safety, nothing more. I'm well aware of that, doctor, Ethan said. His tone was cool, almost offended. I'm offering her a safe place to recover, that's all. The doctor nodded, still skeptical, but he turned his attention back to Anna. I'm going to give you something for the pain. It'll make you drowsy. You should sleep while you can. The next few days are going to be difficult. He prepared a draught of laudanum, helping Anna sit up enough to drink it. The bitter liquid burned going down, but within minutes, Anna could feel the edges of her pain softening, the world becoming slightly less sharp and terrible. "Rest now," Dr. Walsh said. "I'll speak with Mr. Monroe about your care." Anna wanted to protest, wanted to stay awake and aware and in control. But the laudanum was pulling her down into darkness, and this time the darkness didn't feel threatening. It felt like relief. She let herself fall. When Anna woke again, the sun was lower in the sky and she was moving. She was lying in the back of a wagon on a makeshift bed of blankets, and the wheels were rolling over rough ground, jarring her with every bump and rut. Each jolt sent pain radiating through her broken ribs, and she couldn't stop the small sounds of distress that escaped her lips. "Easy," Ethan's voice came from the front of the wagon. "I know it hurts. We're almost to my place. Just hold on a little longer." Anna tried to focus on the sky above her, the endless blue punctuated by wisps of white cloud. She tried to focus on anything except the pain, but it was hard, so hard when every breath felt like she was being stabbed all over again. "Tell me about yourself," she said, her voice rough. Talking hurt, but silence was worse. Silence let her mind wander back to the beating, back to the fire, back to the moment when she'd thought she was going to die. There was a pause from the front of the wagon. Then Ethan said, "Not much to tell. I'm a rancher. Have been for most of my life. Got a small spread up north. Cattle, horses, a few sheep. Nothing fancy, but it's mine. Family. Had a wife once. She died in childbirth. Baby too. That was 8 years ago." Anna heard the grief in those simple words, the kind of grief that time had dulled but never quite erased. "I'm sorry." "So am I. But life goes on. It has to." He was quiet for a moment, then asked, "What about you?" "The doctor said your father died last year." "Yeah, heart gave out. He was working on the fence line and he just collapsed. By the time I found him, he was gone." Anna's throat tightened. "My mother died when I was 12. Pneumonia. So it's just been me for a while now." "That why you wouldn't sell? Because it's all you have left of them?" "Partly, but also because it's wrong. The Reed brothers already own half the county. They don't need my land. They just want it because I have the best water source for miles, and they can't stand the idea of anyone having something they don't control." "Men like that," Ethan said, "they don't understand that some things aren't for sale. They think everything has a price, and if you won't name yours, they'll just take it anyway." "That's exactly what they think," Anna said. "And they're usually right. Nobody stands up to them. The sheriff works for them. The judge goes to dinner at their house. Half the businessmen in town owe them money. They own everything and everyone. Except you." "Except me," Anna agreed, "for all the good it did me." The wagon hit a particularly deep rut, and Anna gasped as pain shot through her chest. She heard Ethan curse under his breath. "Sorry," he said. "Road's rough through here, just another mile or so." Anna closed her eyes and tried to breathe through the pain. She was aware distantly that she was putting an enormous amount of trust in this man she'd just met. He could be taking her anywhere. He could have his own plans for her. But somehow she didn't think so. There had been genuine horror in his eyes when he'd found her genuine concern in his voice, when he'd promised to help her. And right now, trust was all she had. True to his word, they arrived at Ethan's ranch about 20 minutes later. Anna raised her head enough to see a modest cabin with a wide porch, a barn that looked well-maintained, and several corrals holding horses and cattle. It wasn't grand, but it looked solid and cared for. It looked like home. Ethan pulled the wagon up to the cabin and set the brake. Then he climbed down and came around to the back. "I'm going to carry you inside. Brace yourself." Anna did her best to prepare, but nothing could make being lifted painless. She bit down on a scream as Ethan carefully picked her up, one arm under her knees and the other supporting her back. He carried her up the porch steps and through the front door, moving slowly and carefully, and set her down on a bed in a small room off the main living area. The room was simple but clean, a bed with a quilt, a dresser, a chair by the window. It smelled faintly of cedar and sun-dried linen. "This was going to be the nursery," Ethan said quietly, "but I never got around to changing it after... Well, it's yours now for as long as you need it." Anna felt tears prick her eyes. She was so tired of crying, tired of being weak and hurt and helpless. But the simple kindness of his gesture offering her this room that held his own grief broke something loose inside her. "Thank you," she whispered. "I don't know how I'll ever repay you." "You don't need to repay me," Ethan said. He pulled the chair closer to the bed and sat down. "Anna, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest with me. What are you planning to do about the Reed brothers?" Anna met his eyes. "I'm going to make them pay for what they did. I'm going to see them in prison or dead, preferably both." "That's what I thought." Ethan leaned back in the chair, studying her. "And I respect that, I do. But you need to understand what you're up against. These men have money power and connections. They've gotten away with things before things worse than what they did to you. What makes you think you can bring them down when nobody else has managed it?" "Because I'm not dead," Anna said simply. "They made a mistake leaving me alive, and I'm going to use every breath I have left to make sure they regret it." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right, then here's what we're going to do. You're going to stay here and heal. You're going to eat rest and get your strength back. While you do that, I'm going to ride into town and start asking questions. I want to know everything about the Reed brothers, their business dealings, their enemies, their secrets, everything. Because if we're going to take them down, we need ammunition. We need leverage." "Why are you helping me?" Anna asked. "You said you don't owe me anything, so why risk yourself for a stranger?" Ethan stood up and walked to the window, looking out at his land. When he spoke, his voice was low and distant. 8 years ago, my wife was dying. She was in labor, and something went wrong. I rode into town to get the doctor, but he was at the Reed brothers' ranch tending to one of their prize bulls that had injured itself. I begged him to come with me, told him my wife was dying. He said he'd come as soon as he was done with the bull. By the time he got to our ranch, Emma was dead. Baby too. Anna felt her heart clench. "Ethan, the doctor apologized," Ethan continued. "Said there was probably nothing he could have done anyway, but I've always wondered, would they have lived if he'd come with me right away? And why was a bull's life worth more than my wife's?" He turned to face her. "I couldn't save Emma, but I can help you. Maybe that doesn't balance the scales, but it's something." Anna understood then. This wasn't just about justice for her. This was about every person the Reed brothers had ever hurt, every life they'd destroyed with their casual cruelty and their certainty that they were above consequences. "We'll make them pay," she said. "Together." Ethan smiled a small, grim smile that held no warmth. "Yes, we will." He left her then to rest, and Anna lay in the unfamiliar bed staring at the ceiling and trying to process everything that had happened in the last 24 hours. Her home was gone. Her body was broken. She was dependent on the charity of a stranger in a territory where women alone had no power and no rights worth mentioning. But she was alive, and she was angry. And anger, she was learning, could be its own kind of strength. Over the next 3 days, Anna's body began the slow process of healing. Ethan proved to be a surprisingly competent nurse, changing her bandages with careful hands, making sure she ate, even when she had no appetite, helping her to the outhouse when necessary, with a matter-of-fact courtesy that somehow made the humiliation bearable. He never touched her inappropriately, never took advantage of her weakness. He treated her with the same respect he might show a wounded animal he was nursing back to health. Gentle patient, but maintaining a careful distance. On the 4th day, Anna managed to sit up on her own without help. It was a small victory, but it felt monumental. She was getting stronger, slowly but surely. That evening, as Ethan was preparing dinner, Anna called out to him, "When are you going to town to start asking questions?" Ethan appeared in the doorway, wiping his hands on a towel. "Tomorrow, probably. Why? I want to come with you." "Anna, you can barely stand. You're not ready." "I'm ready enough," Anna interrupted. "I need to see the sheriff, file an official complaint, get the process started." "The sheriff won't help you. We established that." "Maybe not. But he needs to know that I'm not going away, that I'm not going to be quiet about what happened." Anna swung her legs over the side of the bed, gritting her teeth against the pain. "I spent my whole life watching women be quiet, watching them accept injustice because fighting back was too hard, too dangerous, too unseemly. I won't be one of those women, not anymore." Ethan looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded. "All right. But we do this carefully. We go in, you file your complaint, and we leave. No confrontations, no heroics. Agreed. Agreed, Anna said, though she wasn't entirely sure she meant it. The next morning, they made the long ride back to town. Anna sat beside Ethan on the wagon seat, this time determined to show she was getting stronger. Every jolt still hurt, every breath was still an effort, but she refused to lie down in the back like an invalid. She was done being helpless. They arrived in town just before noon when the main street was busy with people going about their daily business. Anna felt the eyes on her immediately, the stares, the whispers, the way people stopped to gawk at her bruised face and bandaged body. Let them look, she thought. Let them see what the Reed brothers did. Ethan pulled the wagon up in front of the sheriff's office and set the brake. "You sure about this?" he asked. "I'm sure," Anna said. They climbed down from the wagon, Ethan offering his arm for support that Anna grudgingly accepted. Her legs were shakier than she'd like to admit. Together they walked up the steps to the sheriff's office and pushed open the door. Sheriff Bill Crawford was sitting at his desk, his feet propped up reading a newspaper. He was a big man in his 50s with a belly that hung over his belt and a face that suggested he'd spent more time drinking than working. He looked up as they entered, and Anna saw recognition flicker in his eyes, followed immediately by irritation. "Miss Caldwell," he said, not bothering to stand. "Heard you had some trouble out at your place." "Trouble," Anna repeated. The word felt absurdly inadequate for what had happened to her. "Is that what you call it when two men beat a woman half to death and burn down her house?" Crawford's eyes narrowed. "That's a serious accusation. You got any proof?" Anna gestured to her face, her bandaged torso. "This is proof. Dr. Walsh documented every injury. I'm here to file formal charges against Cole and Mason Reed for assault, attempted murder, and arson." The sheriff's feet hit the floor. He stood up slowly, his expression hardening. "Now hold on just a minute. You're talking about respected businessmen here, men with standing in this community. I can't just arrest them based on your word alone." "You can and you will," Ethan said. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath. "This woman was beaten and left for dead. The evidence is undeniable. If you refuse to do your job, I'll go straight to the territorial marshal and file a complaint about your negligence." Crawford's face flushed red. "Who the hell are you?" "Ethan Monroe. I'm the one who found Miss Caldwell and brought her to safety. I'm prepared to testify to everything I saw, her injuries, the burned house, the condition she was in when I found her. And I'm prepared to make a lot of noise if this gets swept under the rug." The sheriff and Ethan stared at each other, and Anna could feel the tension crackling in the air. Finally, Crawford looked away first. "Fine," he said. "I'll take your statement, Miss Caldwell. But I'm warning you, if it turns out you're lying, I'll charge you with making false accusations. Understood?" "I understand," Anna said. "Now get your pen and paper. I have a lot to tell you." For the next hour, Anna recounted everything that had happened, the Reed brothers' threats, the visit from their ranch hands, the attack, the beating, the fire. She left nothing out, describing every blow, every cruel word, every moment of terror. Her voice shook sometimes, but she never stopped. She made sure every detail was recorded. Sheriff Crawford wrote it all down with obvious reluctance, his pen scratching across the paper. When Anna finished, he looked up at her with something that might have been pity or might have been contempt. "That's quite a story," he said. "But you understand that it's your word against theirs. The Reed brothers will deny everything. They'll say you're a hysterical woman making false accusations because you're bitter about losing your property. Then it'll be up to a judge and jury to decide who's telling the truth," Anna said. "Will you arrest them?" Crawford snorted. "On what grounds you filed a complaint? That doesn't mean I have enough evidence to make an arrest. I'll need to investigate first. Talk to witnesses, gather evidence." "What witnesses?" Anna demanded. "They made sure nobody was around when they attacked me. The only witnesses are the ranch hands who helped them, and they're not going to testify against their employers." "Then I guess you have a problem," Crawford said. He stood up, making it clear the conversation was over. "I'll look into your claims, Miss Caldwell, but I'm telling you right now this isn't going anywhere. Men like the Reeds don't go down easy. And frankly, I'm not convinced they did what you're accusing them of." Anna felt rage building in her chest, hot and violent. "You're not convinced? Look at my face. Look at what they did to me." I see injuries, Crawford said. But injuries don't tell me who caused them. For all I know, you got thrown from a horse or got drunk and picked a fight at the saloon. Hell, for all I know, your friend here beat you himself. Ethan took a step forward. His fists clenched and Anna grabbed his arm. Don't, she said quietly. That's what he wants. He wants an excuse to arrest you instead. Crawford smiled an ugly, knowing smile. Smart woman. Now get out of my office. I've got real work to do. They left Anna shaking with fury and Ethan barely containing his own anger. Outside, the midday sun beat down on them and Anna had to lean against the wagon to keep from falling. That went well, Ethan said sarcastically. It went exactly how I expected, Anna said. But now it's official. I filed charges. There's a record. He can't pretend it didn't happen. He can ignore it, Ethan pointed out, which is probably exactly what he's going to do. Maybe, Anna said. But he's not the only law in the territory. We'll go to the federal marshal if we have to. We'll go to the newspapers. We'll make so much noise that someone has to listen. And in the meantime, Anna looked down the street toward the saloon at the far end of town. In the meantime, I want to see them. I want the Reed brothers to know I'm alive and I'm not running and I'm not scared. Anna, that's a bad idea. I don't care, Anna said. She pushed away from the wagon and started walking down the street, her pace slow and painful but determined. Behind her, she heard Ethan curse under his breath, then hurry to catch up. You're going to get yourself killed, he said. They already tried that. Didn't take. They reached the saloon, a weathered two-story building with swinging doors and the smell of tobacco and whiskey drifting out into the street. Anna paused at the entrance, gathering her courage. She could hear voices inside, laughter, the clink of glasses. Normal life continuing as if nothing had happened, as if she hadn't almost died. Anna pushed through the doors and stepped inside. The saloon fell silent almost immediately. Every head turned to look at her, the battered woman standing in the doorway with bandages showing beneath her shirt and bruises darkening her face. Some people looked shocked. Others looked uncomfortable. A few looked pleased, as if they'd been waiting for this confrontation. And at the far end of the bar, sitting with drinks in their hands and satisfied expressions on their faces, were Cole and Mason Reed. They saw her. For just a moment, genuine surprise flickered across Cole's face, surprise, and something that might have been fear. They'd thought she was dead. They'd been certain of it, but here she was standing on her own 2 feet, staring them down across a crowded saloon. Well now, Cole said, recovering his composure. He raised his glass in a mock toast. Miss Caldwell, what a pleasant surprise. We'd heard you were feeling poorly. I've been better, Anna said. Her voice carried in the silence, steady and clear. But I'm still here, still standing, and I'm going to make sure everyone knows what you did to me. Mason stood up his chair, scraping across the floor. Careful, lady. That sounds like slander. We haven't done anything to you. You beat me half to death and burned down my house, Anna said. Every eye in the saloon was on her now, and she felt the weight of their attention like a physical thing. You tried to steal my land, and when I wouldn't sign it over, you tried to kill me. But you failed, and now everyone is going to know what kind of men you really are. Cole stood up too slowly, his face darkening with anger. You're a liar, he said, and you're going to regret making these accusations. We have lawyers, Miss Caldwell. We have resources. We'll bury you in litigation until you don't have a penny left to your name. I already don't have a penny left, Anna said. You made sure of that when you burned everything I owned, but you know what I do have, the truth. And I'm going to tell it to anyone who'll listen until someone finally does something about you. She reached for the nearest table, needed something to steady herself because her legs were shaking and the room was starting to spin. Her hand found a bottle, and before she consciously decided to do it, she'd grabbed it and hurled it across the room. The bottle shattered against the wall 6 inches from Mason's head, sending glass and whiskey flying. Mason jerked back his hand, going instinctively to his gun, and the entire saloon erupted into chaos. Men jumped to their feet, some moving toward the Reed brothers, others moving toward Anna. Ethan was suddenly there, putting himself between Anna and the crowd, and someone threw a punch that missed its target and hit someone else, and within seconds the saloon had dissolved into a full-scale brawl. Anna backed toward the door, her heart hammering, watching the chaos she'd unleashed. She saw Mason try to push through the crowd toward her, saw Ethan intercept him with a solid punch to the jaw that sent Mason staggering. She saw Cole shouting something she couldn't hear over the din, saw the bartender trying futilely to restore order. And then she saw Sheriff Crawford burst through the door, his rifle raised, firing a shot into the ceiling that finally brought the fighting to a halt. "Everybody freeze!" Crawford roared. The room went still, men frozen in mid-punch, breathing hard, bleeding from split lips and bruised knuckles. The sheriff's eyes swept the room and landed on Anna. "Miss Caldwell," he said, his voice dripping with false concern. "Did you start this?" Before Anna could answer, Ethan stepped forward. She was defending herself. The Reed brothers threatened her. "That's a lie," Cole said, straightening his vest. "She walked in here and started making wild accusations, then threw a bottle at my brother's head. She's clearly unstable. She should be arrested for assault and disturbing the peace." "Is that so?" Crawford looked around the room. "Anyone else see it that way?" And to Anna's horror, heads started nodding. Not everyone. Some people looked away uncomfortable, but enough. Enough to make it clear that the Reed brothers' version of events would be the one that stuck. "I see," Crawford said. He turned to Anna. "Miss Caldwell, you're under eaten." "No." A new voice, this one female, and sharp as a whip crack. Anna turned to see Sarah Mitchell pushing through the crowd, her face flushed and her eyes blazing. Behind her were three other women, the preacher's wife, the school teacher, and Martha Hendricks, who ran the general store. "Sheriff Kemp," Sarah said. "I saw the whole thing through the window. Miss Caldwell did nothing wrong. She spoke the truth and the Reed brothers threatened her. If you arrest her, you'll have to arrest all of us too, because we're prepared to testify to what we saw." The other women nodded, standing shoulder to shoulder with Sarah. Anna felt tears prick her eyes again, not from pain this time, but from gratitude. These women were risking themselves for her. They were standing up when the men wouldn't. Crawford looked between the women and the Reed brothers, clearly calculating the political fallout of whatever decision he made. Finally, he lowered his rifle. "Everyone go home," he said. "This is over. And Miss Caldwell, you stay out of trouble or next time I will arrest you. Understood?" Anna nodded, not trusting herself to speak. Ethan took her arm, supporting her as they made their way through the crowd toward the door. As they passed the Reed brothers, Mason leaned in close and whispered, "This isn't over, bitch. Not by a long shot." "Good," Anna whispered back. "Neither am I." They made it outside into the harsh sunlight, and Anna's legs finally gave out. She sagged against Ethan, all her strength spent, and he caught her before she could fall. "I've got you, so," he said. "Come on, let's get you home." Home. The word struck Anna as bitterly funny. She didn't have a home anymore, just a borrowed room in a stranger's house, and a body that was broken but refusing to stay down. But as Ethan helped her into the wagon and they rode away from town, Anna looked back one last time at the saloon where she'd thrown her bottle and made her stand. She'd wanted the Reed brothers to know she wasn't scared. Mission accomplished. Now she just had to figure out how to stay alive long enough to make them pay. The ride back to Ethan's ranch was long and silent. Anna sat slumped against the wagon seat, her brief surge of defiant energy completely spent. Every bone in her body ached. Every breath was a reminder of her broken ribs, and the confrontation at the saloon had drained what little strength she'd managed to build up over the past few days. But beneath the exhaustion and pain, there was something else burning steady and hot. She'd looked the Reed brothers in the eye and let them know she wasn't finished. That small victory was worth all the pain it had cost her. Ethan didn't speak until they were well clear of town, the buildings fading into heat shimmer behind them. Then he said quietly, "That was either the bravest thing I've ever seen or the most foolish. I haven't decided which." "Maybe both," Anna said. Her voice was barely above a whisper, her throat raw from shouting in the saloon. "You could have gotten yourself killed. If that bottle had actually hit Mason, if he'd drawn his gun before the crowd stopped him." "I know," Anna interrupted. "I know it was reckless. I know I should have stayed quiet and let you handle things. But I couldn't, Ethan. I couldn't let them sit there drinking and laughing like nothing had happened, like they hadn't tried to murder me." Ethan was quiet for a long moment, guiding the horse along the rutted road. Finally he said, "I understand, I do. But you need to be smarter about this. The Reed brothers aren't going to underestimate you again. Next time they come after you, they'll make sure there's no chance of survival. Then we'll have to make sure there's no next time, Anna said. We'll have to bring them down first. And how exactly do you propose we do that the sheriff won't help us? Half the town is either on their payroll or too scared to cross them. We don't have evidence beyond your testimony, and your testimony alone won't be enough to convict them. Anna closed her eyes against the sun and the hopelessness of their situation. He was right, of course. She'd filed charges, she'd made her accusations public, and none of it mattered because the Reed brothers had insulated themselves so thoroughly that the law couldn't touch them, or wouldn't, which amounted to the same thing. There has to be something, she said. Some weakness we can exploit, some secret they're trying to hide. Men like that don't get as powerful as they are without making enemies or breaking laws. We just have to find the right leverage. I've been asking around, Ethan said, carefully, quietly, the way you do when you don't want word getting back to the wrong people. The Reed brothers have fingers in everything around here, cattle land, banking, even the railroad that's supposed to be coming through in the next year or two. They've bought politicians, judges, lawmen. But here's the interesting thing. Nobody actually likes them. Not really. People do business with them because they have to, not because they want to. Fear and necessity, Anna said. That's how men like them build empires. Right, but fear can turn. If we can find enough people who are willing to stand against them, if we can build a case that's strong enough that even the territorial governor can't ignore it. That's a lot of ifs, Anna pointed out. It is, Ethan agreed, but it's the only path I can see, unless you want to take the law into your own hands. Anna thought about that. She thought about riding back to the Reed brothers' ranch in the dead of night with a rifle and settling things the old-fashioned way. She thought about the satisfaction of seeing them dead in the dust the way they'd tried to leave her. But she also thought about what would happen afterward, the trial, the hanging, the way history would remember her, not as a woman seeking justice, but as a murderer who'd killed in cold blood. No, she said finally. If I kill them, they win. They turn me into exactly what they've been saying. I am a hysterical woman who can't control herself. I want them in prison. I want them tried and convicted and punished according to law. I want everyone to know what they did and see them pay for it. That's going to be a lot harder than just shooting them, Ethan said. I know, but it's the right way. They rode in silence for a while longer, the sun beating down mercilessly, the prairie stretching endlessly in all directions. Anna dozed off despite herself, her body demanding rest, even though her mind wanted to keep planning, keep strategizing, keep fighting. When she woke, they were pulling up to Ethan's cabin. The sun was lower now, painting everything in shades of gold and amber. Ethan helped her down from the wagon, and Anna's legs nearly buckled under her own weight. Easy, Ethan said, catching her. You pushed yourself too hard today. Had to be done. Maybe, but now you need to rest. Come on. He helped her inside and back to her room, and Anna collapsed onto the bed with a groan of relief. Every muscle in her body was screaming, and her ribs felt like they were being squeezed in a vice. Ethan brought her water and a plate of cold chicken and bread, but Anna could barely manage a few bites before exhaustion overwhelmed her. Sleep, Ethan said. I'll be right outside if you need anything. Anna wanted to protest, wanted to stay awake and keep planning, but her body had other ideas. She was asleep before Ethan had even left the room. She dreamed of fire and fists and Mason's face looming over her, his expression twisted with cruel satisfaction. She dreamed of her father's voice calling her name of her mother's grave beneath the cottonwood tree of the ranch, as it had been before it burned whole and beautiful and hers. She woke several times in the night, disoriented and gasping, and each time she heard Ethan moving around in the main room keeping watch. He was guarding her. This man who barely knew her was losing sleep to make sure she was safe. Anna didn't know what she'd done to deserve that kind of loyalty, but she was grateful for it all the same. Morning came slowly, and with it a visitor. Anna woke to the sound of voices outside Ethan's low rumble, and another voice she didn't recognize, higher and more agitated. She struggled to sit up, wincing at the pain, and managed to get to her feet and hobble to the window. A man was standing in the yard talking to Ethan. He was young, maybe 25, with sandy hair and nervous energy that showed in the way he kept shifting his weight from foot to foot. Anna couldn't hear what they were saying, But she saw Ethan glance toward the cabin, then nod and gesture for the man to follow him inside. Anna made her way to the main room just as they entered. The young man stopped short when he saw her, his eyes widening at the visible evidence of her beating. "Miss Caldwell," he said. Jesus, I'm so sorry. I heard what happened, but seeing it—" "Who are you?" Anna asked, her hand instinctively going to her ribs as a spike of pain shot through them. "Tom Bridger," the man said. I worked for the Reed brothers. I was there that night. Not when they hurt you, but I was there earlier when they sent me to deliver their message." Anna remembered him, the uncomfortable foreman who'd warned her to sign the papers, who'd looked away when one of the other ranch hands had mocked her. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice cold. Tom twisted his hat in his hands. "I want to help. I want to testify against them. I know what they did, Miss Caldwell. I know they planned it. I heard them talking about it the day before, how they were going to burn you out and make you sign the deed, and if you still wouldn't cooperate, they'd make sure you never refused anything again." Anna's heart began to beat faster. "You heard them say that you'll swear to it in court." "I will," Tom said. "I should have done something sooner. Should have warned you more clearly or gone to the sheriff or something, but I was scared. The Reed brothers, they don't tolerate disloyalty. I've seen what happens to people who cross them. But after what they did to you—" He shook his head. "I can't stay quiet anymore. It's not right." Ethan stepped forward. "Why now? Why come here today?" "Because they're planning something else," Tom said, and now genuine fear crept into his voice. "They know Miss Caldwell is alive and staying somewhere nearby. They've been asking around trying to find out where. And yesterday, after the scene at the saloon, Mason said something about finishing what they started. Said they were going to make an example of her so nobody else would ever dare to stand up to them again." Anna felt ice water run down her spine. "When? I don't know exactly, but soon. Maybe tonight, maybe tomorrow night. They're being careful this time, planning it better. Mason wants to make it look like an accident or like she just disappeared. No body to testify, no evidence to investigate." "We need to go to the sheriff," Anna said immediately. Tom laughed bitterly. "The sheriff won't do anything. He's in their pocket. Always has been. No, what you need is to get Miss Caldwell somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find her, and then we need to go over the sheriff's head. Federal marshal, territorial governor, somebody with authority that the Reed brothers can't buy." "That could take weeks," Ethan said. "Weeks during which they're actively hunting Anna." "I know," Tom said. "But it's the only way. Unless—" He hesitated, then looked directly at Anna. "Unless you're willing to disappear. Leave the territory entirely. Start over somewhere they can't reach you." "No," Anna said immediately. The word came out harsh and flat. "I'm not running. This is my home, my land, or it was. I won't let them chase me away. Even if staying means dying. Even then." Tom looked at her with something like admiration. "You're either the bravest woman I've ever met or the most stubborn." "Everyone keeps saying that," Anna muttered. She moved to the table and lowered herself carefully into a chair. "All right, if you're serious about testifying, we need to document everything you know. Names, dates, conversations you overheard. Anything that can corroborate my version of events." For the next 2 hours, Tom talked while Ethan wrote everything down in careful, precise handwriting. He told them about the Reed brothers' other illegal activities, the cattle they'd stolen and rebranded the homesteaders they'd driven off through intimidation and violence, the mysterious fire at a competitor's warehouse that everyone suspected but nobody could prove. He told them about the politicians they'd bribed and the judges who owed them favors. He told them about the network of fear and corruption that kept the Reed brothers untouchable. And most importantly, he told them about the night Anna's house had burned. He hadn't been there for the actual attack, but he'd heard Cole and Mason talking about it afterward, bragging about how they'd taught that stubborn Caldwell woman a lesson she wouldn't forget. Mason had even joked about how she'd looked when he was beating her, how satisfying it had been to finally break her defiant spirit. He said that, Anna asked, her voice shaking, that it was satisfying. Tom nodded, looking sick. "I'm sorry, Miss Caldwell. I should have quit right then. Should have gone to anyone. But I was scared for my own skin." "You're here now," Anna said. "That counts for something." When they were finished, Ethan looked at the pages of notes spread across the table. This is good. This is enough to at least open an investigation. The question is how to get it to someone who'll actually act on it. I can ride to the territorial capital, Tom offered. Take these notes to the marshal's office there. It's a 2-day journey, but they won't be expecting that. They'll be watching the local telegraph office and the stage routes, not a lone rider going cross-country. That's dangerous, Ethan said. If they catch you with evidence against them, then I'll be in the same position Miss Caldwell was in. Tom finished. I know, but like I said, I can't stay quiet anymore. This is my chance to do something right. Anna reached across the table and grabbed his hand. Thank you. Whatever happens, thank you for trying. Tom squeezed her hand briefly, then stood. I'll leave tonight after dark. Less chance of being spotted. You two should lay low, keep Miss Caldwell out of sight. And for God's sake, be ready for trouble. The Reed brothers aren't going to wait forever. He left the way he'd come, slipping away into the bright morning like a ghost. Anna and Ethan sat at the table in silence, both processing what they'd learned. 2 days, Anna said finally. 2 days until Tom reaches the capital, and another day or two for the marshal to respond. Can we stay hidden that long? We'll have to, Ethan said. I've got supplies to last us a couple of weeks if necessary. We don't need to go into town for anything, and this place is remote enough that the Reed brothers would have a hard time finding it unless they already knew where to look. But they're looking, Anna pointed out. Tom said they've been asking around. Then we prepare, Ethan said. He stood and walked to a cabinet on the far wall, opening it to reveal an impressive collection of weapons, rifles, shotguns, pistols, and boxes of ammunition. I learned after Emma died that you can't rely on anyone else to protect what's yours. You have to be ready to do it yourself. What? Anna looked at the arsenal and felt a chill run through her. You think it'll come to that, a gunfight? I think the Reed brothers have proven they're willing to use violence to get what they want. And I think if they come here, they won't be interested in talking. Ethan pulled down a rifle and checked the action, then started loading it. I won't let them hurt you again, Anna. Whatever it takes. The conviction in his voice was absolute, and Anna felt something shift in her chest. This man had no obligation to her. He could have left her in the dust that first day, could have taken her to town and washed his hands of the whole situation. Instead, he'd taken her in, cared for her, and now he was preparing to risk his own life to keep her safe. Why are you doing this? She asked. And don't tell me it's because of your wife. There's more to it than that. Ethan was quiet for a moment, still focused on loading the rifle. Then he said, when I was young, maybe 15 or 16, my father spoke out against a local businessman who was cheating farmers on their crop sales. Nothing dramatic, just told the truth at a town meeting. 2 nights later, our barn burned down, killed 3 horses, and destroyed a year's worth of stored hay. My father knew who did it, everyone knew, but nobody would testify. Nobody would stand up. And that businessman went on doing what he'd been doing, and my father never spoke out about anything again. He set the loaded rifle aside and looked at Anna. I watched my father's spirit break that year, watched him become smaller, quieter, less than what he'd been. And I swore I'd never let that happen to me. I'd never be the kind of man who stays quiet when he sees wrong being done. So when I found you in the dirt, beaten and bleeding, I had a choice. I could take you to town, make sure you got medical care, and then walk away from the whole mess. Or I could do what my father should have done all those years ago, stand up and refuse to back down. Even if it gets you killed. Better to die standing than live on your knees, Ethan said simply. At least that's what I tell myself. Ask me again when the bullets start flying, and we'll see if I still believe it. Anna felt tears prick her eyes for what felt like the 100th time in the past week. She was so tired of crying, tired of being emotional and vulnerable. But Ethan's words had touched something deep inside her, some part that had been longing to hear that she wasn't alone, that her fight mattered to someone besides herself. Thank you, she whispered, for standing with me. Thank me when we survive this, Ethan said. But he smiled when he said it, and the smile reached his eyes. They spent the rest of the day preparing for the worst. Ethan showed Anna where he kept extra ammunition, where the escape routes were if they needed to flee the cabin quickly, where the best defensive positions would be if it came to a siege. They moved furniture to create better cover-positioned weapons within easy reach, and made sure they had water and food stored inside in case they couldn't leave. It felt surreal, like preparing for war in the middle of nowhere over a piece of land that didn't even exist anymore. But Anna understood now that this had stopped being about land somewhere along the way. This was about justice and dignity and the right to say no to powerful men who thought they owned the world. Night fell with no sign of trouble. Ethan made a simple dinner of beans and cornbread, and they ate in companionable silence. Afterward, Anna tried to help with the dishes, but Ethan waved her away. "You need to rest, build your strength. You're healing, but you're not healed yet." Anna wanted to argue, but her body agreed with him. She was exhausted, and her ribs ached with a deep, bone-tired pain that no amount of willpower could overcome. She retreated to her room and lay down, listening to the sounds of Ethan moving around the cabin, checking windows and doors, making sure everything was secure. She must have dozed off, because she woke suddenly to the sound of horses. Multiple horses moving fast coming from the direction of the road. Anna sat up so quickly that pain shot through her chest, making her gasp. She heard Ethan moving in the main room, heard the distinct sound of a rifle being cocked. "Anna," Ethan called quietly, "stay in your room. Get down below the window level." Anna ignored him. She grabbed the pistol Sarah Mitchell had given her from the dresser and moved to the doorway. Through the window, she could see torches approaching in the darkness, at least 6 riders, maybe more, moving with purpose toward the cabin. "They found us," Anna said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the fear coursing through her. "Appears so," Ethan said. He moved to the window beside the door, his rifle ready. "Get ready. This is about to get ugly." The riders stopped about 50 yards from the cabin, just out of easy rifle range. In the torchlight, Anna could make out familiar shapes, Cole and Mason Reed, flanked by ranch hands and hired guns. They'd brought an army. Cole's voice carried across the distance, calm and almost pleasant. "Monroe. We know Miss Caldwell is in there. Send her out, and nobody else has to get hurt." "Go to hell," Ethan shouted back. "Now that's not very neighborly," Cole called. "We don't have any quarrel with you, Monroe. This is between us and the Caldwell woman. She made some serious accusations today, and we're here to defend our honor." "By burning down my ranch and killing us both," Anna called out before she could stop herself. "That's how you defend your honor." There was a pause, then Mason's voice, ugly with anger. "Bitch should have stayed quiet, should have stayed dead." Cole must have said something to his brother because Mason fell silent. Then Cole called out again. "Miss Caldwell, you've caused us a great deal of trouble, forced us to take steps we'd rather not have taken, but it's not too late to end this peacefully. Come out, sign the deed over to us, and we'll let you leave the territory alive. You can start fresh somewhere else. Isn't that better than dying here in the dirt?" Anna looked at Ethan. His face was grim but determined. He gave a slight shake of his head. His answer was clear. They weren't surrendering. "I already told you my answer," Anna shouted, "and it hasn't changed. You want this land, you'll have to kill me for it. And if you kill me, you'll hang for murder." Cole laughed, the sound carrying eerily in the night air. "Who's going to hang us?" "The sheriff, the judge. They work for us, Miss Caldwell. Everyone in this territory either works for us or fears us. You've got no allies, no power, and no hope. Tonight ends with you in the ground, and tomorrow the world will forget you ever existed." "You're wrong," Anna said. She thought of Tom Bridger riding hard toward the territorial capital with evidence of the Reed brothers' crimes. She thought of Sarah Mitchell and the other women who'd stood up for her in the saloon. She thought of Ethan standing beside her right now, ready to fight for someone he barely knew. "I've got more allies than you think, and I've got something you'll never have the truth on my side." "The truth?" Mason said scornfully. "The truth is what we say it is. And tonight the truth is that you died in a tragic accident along with your friend Monroe. House fire, maybe. Or gas lamp explosion. Something unfortunate and impossible to trace back to us." "That's a confession," Ethan said quietly to Anna. "They just confessed to planning our murders in front of all those men." "They're men," Anna replied. "Who'll say we attacked them first? Who'll say we were the aggressors and they were defending themselves?" Cole's voice came again. "Last chance, Miss Caldwell. Come out in the next minute or we come in and drag you out." Anna looked around the cabin at the sturdy walls Ethan had built, at the furniture they'd arranged for defense, at the weapons within reach. They could hold out for a while, maybe long enough for help to arrive, maybe long enough for Tom to reach the capital and send help. Or maybe they'd both die here tonight, and the Reed brothers would win after all. "What do we do?" she asked Ethan. He looked at her, and in his eyes she saw no fear, only determination and a kind of grim humor. "We do what your father would have wanted. We do what my father should have done all those years ago. We stand our ground, and we fight." Anna nodded. "Then let's give them a fight they'll remember." Ethan smiled a fierce, almost feral smile. Then he turned back to the window and shouted, "You want her? Come and take her. But I promise you this, Reed, you'll pay in blood for every step you take toward this cabin." For a moment there was silence. Then Cole said something Anna couldn't hear, and the riders spread out surrounding the cabin on all sides. "Here they come," Ethan said. He raised his rifle to his shoulder. "Pick your targets. Fire when ready." Anna moved to a window on the opposite side of the cabin, her hands shaking slightly as she raised the pistol. She'd never shot at a person before, never imagined she'd have to. But the riders were dismounting now, moving toward the cabin with weapons drawn, and she knew that if she didn't fire, she'd be dead within minutes. The first shot came from one of the Reed brothers' men, shattering a window on Ethan's side of the cabin. Ethan returned fire immediately, and Anna saw one of the attackers drop with a cry of pain. Then the night erupted with gunfire bullets punching through the wooden walls, glass shattering, the acrid smell of gun smoke filling the cabin. Anna fired at a shape moving toward her window. She didn't know if she hit him, but he dove for cover. She fired again and again, trying to keep them back, trying to protect the thin barrier of wall and window that was all that stood between her and certain death. Beside her, Ethan was firing methodically, calmly, like a man who'd done this before. Each shot was precise, measured, and each shot seemed to find its target or drive the attackers back. But there were too many of them. For every one they drove back, two more seemed to appear, and the walls of the cabin weren't thick enough to stop bullets. Anna heard rounds punching through the wood, felt splinters shower down from the ceiling as shots went high. "We can't hold them off forever," she shouted over the din. "We don't have to," Ethan shouted back. "We just have to make them pay enough that they decide we're not worth the cost." A bottle came sailing through the broken window, trailing fire. Kerosene and flame, just like at Anna's ranch. It shattered against the floor, and fire began to spread across the wooden planks. "Water!" Ethan yelled. "There's a bucket by the stove." Anna ran for it, her ribs screaming in protest, and threw the water on the flames. It wasn't enough. The fire kept spreading, feeding on the dry wood, filling the cabin with smoke. Another bottle came through a different window. More fire. More smoke. They were burning them out just like they'd burned out Anna. "We have to leave." Anna coughed through the smoke. "The back door?" "That's what they want," Ethan said. "They'll be waiting for us to run. Then we stay and burn." Ethan looked around the cabin at the growing flames, at the smoke that was getting thicker by the second. His face was grim. "We fight our way out, together. You ready?" Anna wasn't ready. She'd never be ready for this. But she nodded anyway, because what choice did they have? Ethan reloaded his rifle with swift, practiced movements. "On 3, we go out the back door, firing as we go. Head for the barn. If we can get there, we can mount the horses and ride out. The darkness will cover us once we're clear of the torchlight." "One problem," Anna said. "I can barely run." "Then I'll carry you if I have to," Ethan said. "One way or another, we're getting out of here alive. Ready." Anna gripped her pistol, said a quick prayer to a god she wasn't sure was listening, and nodded. 1, Ethan counted. 2, 3. They burst through the back door into the night, and the world exploded into chaos and gunfire and shouting. Anna fired blindly at shapes in the darkness, heard men yelling, felt Ethan's hand gripping her arm and pulling her forward. They ran toward the barn, bullets kicking up dirt around their feet, and Anna felt something burn across her shoulder, a near miss that drew blood but didn't stop her. They made it to the barn, and Ethan kicked the door open. Inside, the horses were panicking from the gunfire, wild-eyed and stamping. Ethan moved with incredible speed, throwing saddles on 2 of them, his hands steady, despite the chaos outside. "Can you ride?" he asked Anna. "I'll have to," Anna said through gritted teeth. Ethan helped her mount, then swung up onto his own horse. When I open these doors, you ride hard and you don't look back. Understand? No matter what happens, you keep riding. Ethan. Promise me, Anna. Promise you'll keep riding. I promise. Anna lied. Ethan threw open the barn doors and they exploded out into the night. Behind them, the cabin was fully engulfed now, flames reaching toward the sky. The Reed brothers' men were scattered around it, and for just a moment there was confusion. Nobody expecting the sudden appearance of two riders charging out of the barn. That moment was all they needed. Ethan and Anna rode hard into the darkness, away from the fire and the shouting and the men who wanted them dead. Bullets whined past them, but in the darkness and confusion, none found their mark. They rode and rode, the horses stretching out into a full gallop, and gradually the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. They didn't stop until the ranch was miles behind them, until the fire was nothing but a faint glow on the horizon. Only then did Ethan rein in his horse, breathing hard, and turn to check on Anna. "You all right?" he asked. Anna realized she was crying, tears streaming down her face, her body shaking with a mixture of fear and adrenaline and relief. "I'm alive," she said. "We're alive." "For now," Ethan said. He looked back the way they'd come. "But they'll come after us. They can't let us live now, not after tonight. We're witnesses to attempted murder. We can testify that they tried to kill us." "Where do we go?" Anna asked. She felt utterly lost, displaced, like she'd been cut free from every anchor that had ever held her to the earth. "North it," Ethan said. "Toward the territorial capital. We'll find Tom and the federal marshal. We'll tell our story to anyone who'll listen, and we'll make sure the Reed brothers answer for what they've done." Anna nodded, wiping tears from her face. Her shoulder burned where the bullet had grazed her. Her ribs ached, and she was so tired she could barely stay in the saddle. But she was alive, and Ethan was alive, and somewhere ahead of them was justice waiting to be claimed. "Let's ride," she said. And they did, two figures on horseback, disappearing into the vast darkness of the Oklahoma night, leaving behind them a burning ranch and the beginning of a reckoning that would shake the territory to its foundations. They rode through the night until exhaustion threatened to pull them both from their saddles. The horses were lathered and blowing hard. Their strength nearly spent, and Anna had reached a point where the pain in her ribs had transcended into a kind of numbness that was almost worse than the sharp agony. She swayed in the saddle, gripping the horn with white-knuckled desperation, her vision swimming in and out of focus. Finally, just before dawn, Ethan guided them off the road and into a small stand of cottonwoods near a creek. The water was running low this late in the summer, barely more than a trickle, but it was enough for the horses to drink. Ethan dismounted first and helped Anna down, catching her when her legs gave out beneath her. "Easy," he said, supporting her weight. "You're all right. We're safe for now." "Safe," Anna repeated. The word felt foreign, impossible. How could anywhere be safe when the Reed brothers had the resources to hunt them across the entire territory? But she was too tired to argue, too tired to do anything except let Ethan guide her to a spot beneath the trees where the ground was soft with fallen leaves. She collapsed onto the earth and simply breathed, staring up at the branches silhouetted against the pre-dawn sky. Somewhere nearby, she could hear Ethan tending to the horses, his movements quiet and efficient. He'd saved her life tonight, again. She'd lost count of how many times now. "Here," Ethan said, appearing beside her with a canteen. "Drink. You need water." Anna drank gratefully, the water cool and sweet against her parched throat. When she'd had her fill, Ethan took the canteen back and drank deeply himself. In the growing light, she could see that he was covered in soot and dirt. His shirt torn in several places, a cut above his left eyebrow that had bled down the side of his face. "You're hurt," she said. "So are you," he replied, gesturing to her shoulder where the bullet had grazed her. The wound had bled through her shirt, the fabric stiff with dried blood. "It's not bad," Anna said, though she hadn't actually looked at it yet. "Just a graze." "Let me see." Anna started to protest, but Ethan was already pulling bandages from his saddlebag. He'd grabbed supplies in those frantic seconds before they'd fled the barn, she realized. Always thinking ahead, always prepared. She let him examine the wound, biting her lip against the pain as he cleaned it with whiskey from a flask and wrapped it with strips of clean cloth. "You were right," he said as he worked. "It's not deep. You'll have a scar, but it should heal clean if we keep it from getting infected." "Another scar to add to the collection," Anna said with bitter humor. Her entire body was becoming a map of violence, each mark a testament to the Reed brothers' cruelty. Ethan finished bandaging her shoulder and sat back, studying her face. "How are your ribs?" "Hurt like hell," Anna admitted. "But I'll live." "That's becoming our motto, isn't it? We'll live. Just barely, but we'll live." Anna managed a weak smile. "Better than the alternative." They fell silent for a while, both too exhausted for conversation. Anna watched the sky lighten from black to purple to pink, the sun beginning its relentless climb above the horizon. Another day, another chance. She'd survived the night when she probably shouldn't have. "What now?" she asked finally. "The Reed brothers know which direction we're headed. They'll expect us to ride for the capital." "They will," Ethan agreed. "Which is why we're not taking the direct route. We'll circle west, stay off the main roads. It'll take us longer, but it's safer. And we need to find Tom. If he's already reached the capital, we need to join forces with him. If he hasn't," Ethan's expression darkened. "If he hasn't, we need to find out why." The implication hung in the air between them. Tom might have been caught, might have been killed, might have decided the risk was too great and turned back. They had no way of knowing. "We should rest here for a few hours," Ethan said. "The horses need it, and so do you. I'll keep watch. If anyone comes looking for us, I'll wake you." Anna wanted to argue that he needed rest too, that he couldn't keep going on no sleep any more than she could. But her body was already shutting down, dragging her toward unconsciousness, whether she wanted it or not. She nodded and let her eyes close, trusting Ethan to keep them safe. She woke to the sound of birds and the feeling of sun on her face. For a disoriented moment, she didn't know where she was or why her entire body hurt. Then memory crashed back the attack, the burning cabin, the desperate flight through darkness. She sat up with a gasp, looking around wildly. Ethan was sitting a few yards away, his back against a tree trunk, his rifle across his lap. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, but he was alert and watchful. "How long did I sleep?" Anna asked, her voice rough. "Few hours. It's almost noon. We should move soon, but I wanted to give you as much rest as possible." Anna struggled to her feet, her body protesting every movement. Everything hurt: her ribs, her shoulder, her legs, even her jaw where Mason had hit her days ago. She felt like she'd been trampled by a herd of cattle, but she was upright and she was breathing, and that would have to be enough. They ate a cold meal of jerky and hardtack from Ethan's supplies, then refilled their canteens from the creek and prepared to ride. The horses looked somewhat recovered, though they'd need proper rest and feed soon. Anna's mount, a sturdy mare named Duchess, nuzzled her shoulder as she tightened the saddle, and Anna felt a rush of affection for the animal who'd carried her to safety. "You ready?" Ethan asked. "As ready as I'll ever be," Anna replied. They mounted up and headed west, keeping to the open country and avoiding settlements where word of their presence might reach unfriendly ears. The day was scorching, the sun beating down mercilessly, and Anna felt herself wilting under the heat. But she kept going because stopping meant giving up, and she'd come too far to give up now. They rode until evening when Ethan spotted a small farmstead in the distance. It was a modest place, a simple cabin, a barn, a few fields of struggling crops. But there was smoke rising from the chimney, which meant people. People who might help or might betray them to the Reed brothers. "We need supplies," Ethan said, studying the farm. "Food feed for the horses, fresh water. And you need proper rest in a real bed, not on the ground." "It's a risk," Anna said. "Everything's a risk now," Ethan replied. "But I know this family, the Johnsons. Good people. They don't have any love for the Reed brothers. Last year, Cole tried to buy their land for half what it was worth, and when they refused, he had the bank call in their loan early. They almost lost everything." "So they might be sympathetic to our cause," Anna said. "Or they might be too scared to help us," Ethan said. "But I think it's worth finding out." They rode toward the farm, slowly giving anyone watching plenty of time to see them coming. As they approached, a man emerged from the barn, carrying a pitchfork, not threatening, but cautious. He was in his 50s, weathered and worn, with the look of someone who'd spent his entire life fighting to keep what was his. "Ethan Monroe," the man said, squinting in the fading light. "That you?" "It's me, Jack," Ethan called back. "I'm sorry to arrive unannounced, but we're in some trouble and could use your help." Jack Johnson's eyes moved to Anna, taking in her visible injuries and disheveled appearance. His expression softened with concern. "What kind of trouble?" "The Reed brothers' kind," Ethan said. Jack's face darkened. He glanced back at the house, then back at them. "Come inside, quickly before someone sees you from the road." They dismounted and led the horses to the barn. Jack helped them unsaddle and feed the animals, working in tense silence. When the horses were settled, he led them toward the house. A woman appeared in the doorway. Jack's wife, Martha, gray-haired and kind-faced. "Lord have mercy," Martha said when she saw Anna. "Jack, get them inside. I'll heat water for washing and start on supper." Inside the Johnson home was simple but clean, filled with the accumulated comfort of years spent building a life together. Martha bustled around heating water and gathering clean towels, while Jack sat Ethan and Anna down at the kitchen table and listened to their story. Anna told him everything: the attack, the beatings, the fires, the sheriff's refusal to help the second attempt on their lives at Ethan's ranch. Jack's expression grew grimmer with each revelation, his hands clenching into fists on the table. "Those bastards," he said when she finished. "Pardon my language, Miss Caldwell, but those Reed brothers are a cancer on this territory, always have been, and nobody's been willing to stand up to them." "We're standing up now," Anna said, "and we're going to see them answer for their crimes if it's the last thing we do." "It might well be," Jack said bluntly. "They've got the money and power to hunt you to the ends of the earth. You know that, right?" "We know," Ethan said. "But we've got something they don't have evidence." Tom Bridger, one of their own ranch hands, is riding to the territorial capital right now with documented proof of their crimes. If we can reach the federal marshal, we can bring them down. Jack was quiet for a long moment, turning his coffee cup in his hands. "You're asking us to help you. That means putting ourselves in the Reed brothers' crosshairs. I've got Martha to think about, and our son and his family who live just over in the next county. If the Reeds find out we helped you—" "We're not asking you to do anything dangerous," Ethan said quickly. "Just give us a place to rest for the night, some food. We'll be gone before dawn and nobody will know we were here. But if they track you here, if they question us—" "Tell them the truth," Anna said. "Tell them we came here desperate and you turned us away. Tell them whatever you need to tell them to keep your family safe. We won't hold it against you. We know what it costs to stand against them." Martha came over and put a hand on her husband's shoulder. "Jack, look at this poor girl. She's half dead on her feet. We can't turn them away." Jack looked up at his wife, and something passed between them, a whole conversation in a single glance. Then he nodded slowly. "All right, you can stay the night, but come morning you need to be gone. And if anyone asks, we never saw you." "Agreed." "Agreed," Anna said, relief washing through her. "Thank you. You don't know what this means to us." "I know exactly what it means," Jack said. "It means we're all betting our lives that you can actually bring down the Reed brothers, so you'd better not fail." Martha showed Anna to a small room where she could wash and change into clean clothes, a simple dress that belonged to Martha's daughter. The act of washing away the soot and blood and sweat of the past 2 days felt like a kind of baptism, a small restoration of her humanity. When she looked at herself in the mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back. Her face was still bruised, one eye slightly swollen, a cut on her cheek just beginning to scab over. But there was something new in her expression too, a hardness that hadn't been there before, a determination that had been forged in fire and violence. She rejoined the others in the kitchen where Martha had prepared a simple but hearty meal of stew and fresh bread. Anna ate like she was starving, which she realized she was. She couldn't remember her last real meal. The food was delicious, and more than that, it was normal. For just a moment, sitting at this table with these good people, she could almost pretend that her life hadn't been completely destroyed. After dinner, Jack pulled out a map and spread it on the table. "If you're heading to the capital, you'll want to avoid the main stage road. The Reed brothers will have men watching it. There's a back route through the hill country, slower and harder going, but safer. If you leave before dawn and keep to this path, you should reach the capital in 3 days, maybe 4. Ethan studied the map, committing the route to memory. "What about Tom Bridger? If he took the direct route, he should be at the capital by now." "Should be," Jack agreed. "Assuming he made it. The Reed brothers have eyes everywhere. If they caught wind of what he was doing, then we'll be walking into a trap," Anna finished. "They'll be waiting for us at the capital. Maybe, Ethan said. Or maybe Tom made it through and the marshal is already preparing arrest warrants. We won't know until we get there. It's a hell of a gamble, Jack said. Everything's a gamble now, Anna replied, echoing Ethan's words from earlier. But I'd rather gamble on justice than live the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Martha touched Anna's hand gently. You're very brave, dear. I hope you know that. Anna felt tears threaten again. She was so tired of crying, but the simple kindness in Martha's words broke through her defenses. I don't feel brave. I feel terrified and angry and so tired I can barely think straight. That's what bravery is, Martha said. Doing what needs to be done even when you're terrified. My mother used to say that courage isn't the absence of fear, it's acting despite the fear. Your mother was a wise woman, Anna said. They talked late into the evening, sharing stories and building the fragile connections that form between people in crisis. Jack told them about his own struggles with the Reed brothers, how he'd almost lost his farm, and his hope before a good harvest and some help from neighbors had saved him. Martha spoke of the other families who'd been driven out or ruined by the Reeds' ambition and greed. The stories piled up like kindling, each one adding fuel to Anna's burning need for justice. Finally, exhaustion claimed them all. Martha showed Anna to a small bedroom with a real bed, soft pillows, and clean sheets. Anna sank into it with a groan of relief, her body finally able to fully relax for the first time in what felt like years. But sleep brought dreams. She dreamed of fire and fists and Mason Reed's face looming over her. She dreamed of her father's voice calling her name, disappointed that she'd let the ranch burn. She dreamed of Ethan falling beneath a hail of bullets while she could only watch and scream. She woke several times in the night, gasping and disoriented, her heart racing. Each time she forced herself to breathe deeply to remember where she was and that she was safe. For now. True to their word, Anna and Ethan were up before dawn. Martha had prepared food for their journey, bread, cheese, dried meat, and apples from their small orchard. Jack helped them saddle the horses and gave them detailed instructions about the route through the hill country. Stay off the ridge lines where you can be seen from a distance, he said. Keep to the valleys and tree cover. There are a couple of small settlements along the way, but I'd avoid them if you can. The fewer people who see you, the better. Thank you, Jack, Ethan said, shaking the older man's hand. For everything. If we make it through this... When you make it through this, Jack corrected firmly. When you do, you come back and visit properly. Martha makes a mean apple pie, and you'll want to taste it when you're not running for your lives. Anna hugged Martha, this woman who'd shown them kindness when kindness was a risk. Thank you for believing in us. I'm believing in justice, Martha said, and I'm praying that God watches over you both. You're doing something important here. Don't forget that when things get hard. They rode out into the pre-dawn darkness, leaving the Johnson farm behind. The route Jack had shown them took them away from the main road and into rougher country, rocky hills covered with scrub oak, and cedar narrow valleys where creeks ran low between steep banks. It was slow going, the horses picking their way carefully over uncertain ground, but Anna felt safer here in the wilderness than she had on the open prairie. They rode in silence for the first few hours, both lost in their own thoughts. The sun rose, painting the hills in shades of amber and gold, and somewhere in the distance a hawk cried out as it hunted. It was beautiful country, harsh but honest, and Anna felt a pang of longing for the life she'd lost. Would she ever have a place to call home again? Or was she doomed to spend the rest of her days running from the consequences of standing up to powerful men? What will you do? Ethan asked, breaking the silence. After this is over, I mean. Assuming we survive and the Reed brothers go to prison. What then? Anna had been thinking about the same thing. I don't know. My ranch is gone. Everything I owned is gone. I suppose I'll have to start over somewhere else. You could rebuild, Ethan suggested. The land is still yours, even if the house burned down. You could get a loan, hire some hands, build it back. With what money? And who's going to loan money to a single woman with no collateral and a reputation for making powerful enemies? Anna shook her head. No, that life is over. I need to accept that and figure out what comes next. What do you want to come next? Anna thought about it. What did she want? For so long, her life had been defined by survival and fighting and holding on to what was hers. But if she let go of that, if she accepted that the past was gone, What did she actually want for her future? I want to feel safe, she said finally. I want to wake up in the morning without fear. I want to build something, a life, a home, a future that nobody can take away from me. And I want... She hesitated, then continued. I want to help other people. Women like me who are fighting to keep what's theirs. I want to be the kind of person who stands up when it matters. You're already that person, Ethan said quietly. You've been that person all along. Anna looked at him. This man who'd become her partner in survival, her protector, her friend. What about you? What will you do when this is over? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. My ranch is probably gone too, burned to the ground like yours, and I'm not sure I want to rebuild it. Too many ghosts there. Too many memories of Emma and the baby and the life I thought I'd have. He glanced at her, and there was something in his eyes she couldn't quite read. Maybe I'll head somewhere new, somewhere nobody knows my name or my history. Start fresh. That sounds lonely, Anna said. It does, Ethan agreed. But maybe it doesn't have to be. Maybe I'll find someone to start fresh with. Someone who understands what it means to lose everything and rebuild from nothing. The implication hung in the air between them, unspoken but understood. Anna felt her heart beat faster, a mixture of fear and hope rising in her chest. Was he saying what she thought he was saying? And if he was, how did she feel about it? Before she could respond, Ethan pointed ahead. There's a settlement up there. Small place, maybe a dozen buildings. We should circle around it. They guided their horses to the west, staying in the tree line and out of sight of the settlement. But as they passed, Anna caught a glimpse of something that made her pull up short. Ethan, look. In front of what appeared to be the settlement's only general store, 3 horses were tied. And even from this distance, Anna recognized one of them, a distinctive paint gelding that belonged to Mason Reed. They're here, she breathed. How did they find us? Ethan's jaw tightened. They didn't find us. They're probably checking every settlement along the route to the capital. It's only a matter of time before they work their way to where we are. So what do? Keep riding. Try to outrun them. We could, Ethan said slowly. Or... He looked at the settlement, then back at Anna. Or we could end this right now. There are 3 of them and 2 of us, but we've got the element of surprise. And if we can capture one of the Reeds, get him to confess, that might be all the evidence we need. Anna stared at him. You want to attack them here now. I want to stop running, Ethan said. I want to stop letting them set the terms of this fight. We've been reacting to them since this whole thing started. Maybe it's time we took the initiative. Anna's mind raced. It was insane. It was dangerous. It could get them both killed, but it could also end this nightmare once and for all. And she was so tired of running, so tired of being afraid. All right, she said, let's do it. But we do it smart. No heroics. We get in. We get one of them isolated, and we make him talk. Agreed. Agreed, Bit, Ethan said. He checked his rifle, then looked at her seriously. Anna, if this goes wrong, if things go bad, I want you to run. Don't try to save me. Just run and get to the capital and tell them everything. Ethan, promise me, he said firmly. One of us has to survive this to see justice done. If it can't be both of us, let it be you. Anna wanted to argue, wanted to refuse to make a promise she knew she wouldn't keep, but she saw the determination in his eyes and knew that arguing would waste precious time. I promise, she said. They dismounted and tied their horses in a secluded spot, then made their way on foot toward the settlement. It was midday, and most people were inside escaping the heat. The main street was nearly empty, which worked in their favor. They moved from building to building, staying in the shadows until they had a clear view of the general store. Through the window, Anna could see 2 figures inside Mason Reed and one of his ranch hands. The third man was nowhere in sight, which made her nervous. Where was he there? Ethan whispered, pointing. The third man had emerged from the outhouse behind the store and was heading around the side of the building. He was young, maybe 20, and he walked with the casual confidence of someone who didn't expect trouble. That's our target, Ethan said. We take him, we make him tell us where Tom Bridger is, and we use that information to find the marshal. They waited until the young ranch hand had walked past their hiding spot. Then Ethan moved. He was fast and silent, grabbing the man from behind and putting a knife to his throat before the ranch hand could even cry out. "Make a sound and you die," Ethan hissed. "Understand?" The man nodded frantically, his eyes wide with terror. Ethan dragged him backward into the alley between two buildings, and Anna followed, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "What's your name?" Ethan demanded, keeping his voice low. Danny. Danny Pierce." "All right, Danny, here's how this works. You answer my questions truthfully, and you walk away from this alive. You lie to me, and I'll cut your throat and leave you bleeding in this alley. Clear?" Danny nodded again, tears streaming down his face. He was just a kid, Anna realized. Barely more than a boy, probably working for the Reed brothers because he needed the money and didn't know any better. "Where's Tom Bridger?" Anna asked. Danny's eyes widened further. I don't know what you're—" Ethan pressed the knife harder against his throat, drawing a thin line of blood. "Wrong answer. Try again." "They caught him," Danny gasped out. 2 days ago, on the road to the Capitol, Mr. Mason shot him and they dumped his body in a ravine. I swear that's the truth." Anna felt her stomach drop. Tom was dead. Their witness, their evidence, their hope gone. "What about the documents he was carrying?" Ethan demanded. "What happened to them?" "Mr. Cole has them. He burned them. Said there was no point leaving evidence lying around." Anna and Ethan exchanged looks of despair. Everything they'd been counting on, everything they'd risked their lives for, destroyed. They had nothing now. No evidence, no witness, no hope of bringing the Reed brothers to justice through legal means. "What are you doing here?" Anna asked Danny. "Why are the Reed brothers checking these settlements?" "Looking for you," Danny said. "Mr. Mason said to check every town and settlement between here and the Capitol. Said you'd probably try to get help from the federal marshal, and we were supposed to stop you before you got there. How many men are with you?" "Just the 3 of us here, but there are other groups checking the other routes. Maybe 20 men total spread out across the territory." Ethan cursed under his breath. 20 men hunting us. We'll never make it to the Capitol." "So what do we do?" Anna asked. "We can't fight 20 men. We can't hide forever. And we can't prove the Reed brothers did anything wrong." Before Ethan could answer, a voice called out from the street. "Danny, where the hell are you? Mason Reed, looking for his missing ranch hand." Danny opened his mouth to shout, and Ethan slammed the hilt of his knife against the side of his head. Danny crumpled unconscious but alive. Ethan lowered him to the ground and looked at Anna. "We need to leave. Now." They ran for their horses, moving as fast as Anna's injured body would allow. Behind them, she heard Mason's voice rising in alarm, heard him calling for his men. They'd been spotted, or Danny had been found. Either way, the element of surprise was gone. They reached their horses and mounted up, Ethan pulling Anna into the saddle behind him on his horse because there was no time to mount both animals. They abandoned the second horse and rode hard out of the settlement with shouts and the sound of pursuit rising behind them. "They're coming!" Anna yelled, looking back to see Mason and his men running for their own horses. "Hold on!" Ethan urged his horse to a gallop, and they flew across the landscape, racing for the tree line in the hope of cover. Behind them, gunshots rang out, bullets whining past them, kicking up dirt from the ground. They made it to the trees and plunged into the forest branches, whipping at them as they rode. Ethan guided his horse with expert precision, ducking and weaving through the dense growth. Anna clung to him, her arms around his waist, feeling every jolt and turn. They rode for what felt like hours, but was probably only minutes until the sounds of pursuit faded behind them. Finally, Ethan slowed the horse to a walk, both of them breathing hard, and looked for a place to hide. They found a small cave tucked into a hillside, barely large enough for them and the horse, but it would have to do. They dismounted and led the horse inside, then collapsed against the stone wall, gasping for breath. "Tom's dead," Anna said when she could speak again. "The evidence is destroyed. We have nothing, Ethan. Nothing." "We have our testimony, Ben," Ethan said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Which nobody will believe without corroboration. We're back where we started. No, we're worse off than where we started, because now the Reed brothers know we're actively trying to bring them down. They won't stop until we're dead." Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "There might be one other option." What? We make them confess. Record it somehow get witnesses, force them to admit what they've done. Anna laughed bitterly. And how exactly do you propose we do that? Walk up to them and ask them nicely to confess to murder and attempted murder. No, Ethan said slowly. But what if we gave them what they wanted? What if we made them think they'd won? Anna looked at him, not understanding. Ethan met her eyes, and she saw a plan forming in his mind, desperate, dangerous, but possible. You want to use me as bait, she said. I want to give them a chance to gloat. Men like that, when they think they've won, they can't help but brag about it. If we can get them in a situation where they feel safe enough to talk, where there are enough witnesses to hear what they say, we might be able to turn their arrogance against them. That's insane, Anna said. You have a better idea. She didn't. She desperately wanted to, but her mind was blank. They were out of options, out of allies, out of hope. The only thing they had left was the willingness to risk everything one more time. All right, Anna said. Tell me your plan. And in that small cave with Mason Reed's men hunting them somewhere in the forest outside Ethan Monroe, laid out a plan that was either brilliant or suicidal. Possibly both. But it was the only chance they had left, and they were going to take it. The plan was simple in theory, but terrifying in execution. Anna would return to town alone, appearing defeated and desperate, and publicly offer to sign over the deed to her burned ranch in exchange for the Reed brothers leaving her alone. She'd do it at the saloon during the busiest time of day with as many witnesses as possible. The Reed brothers, believing they'd finally broken her, would accept, and in their moment of triumph, they'd talk. They'd brag. Men like that always did when they thought they'd won. And Ethan would be there hidden among the crowd, ready to make sure every word was heard and remembered. It was a terrible plan. It relied on too many variables, too many assumptions about how the Reed brothers would react. But as they'd sat in that cave discussing alternatives, they'd kept coming back to the same conclusion: this was their only shot. You'll be exposed, Ethan had said, his voice heavy with concern. Vulnerable. If they decide to just kill you instead of gloating, I might not be able to get to you in time. Then I'll die, Anna had replied with a calmness she didn't feel. But at least I'll die fighting. That's better than spending the rest of my life running. Now 2 days later, Anna sat on a borrowed horse at the edge of town, watching the sun climb toward noon. Ethan had left hours ago, slipping into town in the pre-dawn darkness to position himself. She hadn't seen him since. She was alone now, and the weight of that loneliness pressed down on her like a physical thing. She'd cleaned herself up as best she could with water from a creek and the spare dress Martha Johnson had given her. She'd braided her hair and tried to make herself look like a woman who'd been beaten down by circumstances, not by fists. The visible bruises on her face helped sell that story, though they were fading now to yellow and green. Anna took a deep breath and touched the spot over her heart where she'd tucked a letter she'd written the night before. If this went wrong, if she died today, she wanted there to be a record of what had happened. The letter detailed everything: the attacks, the fires, Tom Bridger's murder, all of it. She'd given a copy to Ethan with instructions to mail it to every newspaper in the territory if she didn't survive. It wasn't much, but it was something. She urged the horse forward, riding slowly into town. People stopped to stare as she passed, their expressions a mixture of curiosity and pity. Word had spread about her confrontation with the Reed brothers, about the fires and the accusations. Some people probably thought she was crazy. Others probably thought she was already dead. Let them think what they wanted. She was about to give them a show they'd never forget. Anna rode straight to the saloon and dismounted, tying her horse to the rail out front. Through the swinging doors, she could hear the normal midday sounds: men drinking, cards being shuffled low, conversation. She stood there for a moment, gathering her courage, then pushed through the doors and stepped inside. The saloon fell silent almost immediately, just like it had the last time. Every head turned to look at her, and there at their usual table at the back sat Cole and Mason Reed, drinks in hand, looking at her with expressions of surprise that quickly shifted to calculation. Anna walked toward them, her footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. She kept her head up, her spine straight, even though every instinct screamed at her to run. Miss Caldwell, Cole said, recovering first. He gestured to an empty chair. This is unexpected. Please sit down. Anna remained standing. I'm not here to socialize. I'm here to end this. End what exactly? Mason asked, his voice dripping with false innocence. We're just having a drink. We're not bothering anybody.
You've been hunting me across the territory, Anna said loudly, making sure her voice carried to every corner of the saloon. You burned my house, beat me half to death, and tried to kill me twice more. You murdered Tom Bridger when he tried to help me. And now I'm done. I'm finished fighting. Cole exchanged a glance with Mason, and Anna saw triumph flicker across both their faces. That's unfortunate, Cole said. About Tom, I mean. Fine young man. Terrible accident. It wasn't an accident, Anna said. You shot him and threw his body in a ravine because he was going to testify against you. That's quite an accusation, Cole said mildly. Do you have any proof what? No, Anna admitted. You made sure of that. You burned the evidence, killed the witness, and bought off anyone who might have helped me. You've won. I know that now. Mason leaned back in his chair, a satisfied smile spreading across his face. Took you long enough to figure it out. So what are you here for? Come to beg for mercy? Anna forced herself to meet his eyes without flinching. I'm here to make a deal. I'll sign over the deed to my land, what's left of it, and I'll leave the territory. Go somewhere you'll never find me. In exchange, you leave me alone. You stop hunting me. You let me go. Cole studied her, his expression unreadable. And why should we trust that you won't just come back? That you won't keep making accusations? Because I'm broken, Anna said, and she let real desperation creep into her voice. You broke me. I have nothing left. No home, no money, no hope. I just want to survive, that's all. I'll sign whatever you want, say whatever you want me to say. Just let me live. The silence that followed was absolute. Every person in the saloon was watching, waiting to see what would happen. Anna could feel their eyes on her, could feel the weight of judgment and pity. She wondered if any of them understood what she was really doing. Cole looked at Mason, and something passed between them, a whole conversation in a glance. Then Cole turned back to Anna and smiled. Well now, this is a pleasant surprise. I have to admit, Miss Caldwell, I didn't think you had it in you to be reasonable. You've been so stubborn up until now. Stubbornness doesn't keep you alive when you're up against impossible odds, Anna said. No, it doesn't. Cole agreed. He pulled a folded document from his vest pocket, the deed to Anna's land. She realized the same one they'd tried to force her to sign the night they beat her. I happen to have the papers right here. How convenient. All you need to do is sign, and this unpleasant business can be concluded. He laid the deed on the table and produced a pen. Anna looked at it, at the document that represented her father's life work and her mother's memory. Everything she'd fought for, everything she'd suffered to protect, and she was about to sign it away. No, she wasn't signing it away. She was trading it for something more valuable, justice. Anna reached for the pen and Mason's hand shot out and grabbed her wrist. His grip was bruising, painful, and she gasped. Before you sign, Mason said, his voice low and ugly, I want to hear you say it. I want to hear you admit that we won, that we broke you. Anna looked at him, at the cruelty in his eyes, and felt rage surge through her, but she pushed it down, buried it beneath a mask of defeat. You won, she said quietly. You broke me. I'm signing this because I'm too scared to keep fighting, because you're stronger and more powerful, and I'm nothing. Is that what you want to hear? Mason's smile widened. It's a start, but I want more than that. I want you to admit what really happened. I want you to tell everyone here that you're a liar, that we never touched you, never burned your house, that you made it all up because you're a hysterical woman who couldn't handle losing her property. Anna's heart pounded. This was it, the moment she'd been waiting for, the moment when their arrogance would be their undoing. I can't say that, she said, because it's not true. You did beat me. You did burn my house, and everyone in this room knows it. Mason's expression darkened. Then maybe we need to teach you one more lesson about telling lies. Mason, Cole said warningly, not here, not now. Why not? Mason demanded. She's already caused us enough trouble. Nobody's going to care if she has another accident. Because there are witnesses, Cole said. Too many people watching. We do this, smart little brother. We get her signature, we let her leave town, and then we deal with her quietly. Understood? Mason released Anna's wrist, shoving her hand away. Fine. Sign the damn paper and get out of here before I change my mind.
Anna picked up the pen, her hand shaking partly from fear, partly from barely contained rage. She positioned the pen over the signature line, ready to sign away everything, and then she set the pen down. "No," she said. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Cole's eyes narrowed dangerously. "What did you say?" "I said no," Anna repeated, and now she let the rage show, let it fill her voice with steel. "I'm not signing, I'm not surrendering, and I'm not going to let you get away with what you've done." Mason lunged across the table, but Anna was ready. She grabbed the whiskey bottle from the table and smashed it against his reaching hand, sending glass and alcohol flying. Mason roared in pain and fury, and chaos erupted in the saloon. Men jumped to their feet, some moving toward Anna, others backing away. Cole was shouting something, trying to restore order, but his voice was drowned out by the commotion. And through it all, Anna stood, her ground-broken glass in one hand and pure defiance blazing in her eyes. "You want to hear the truth?" she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise. "Here's the truth. These men beat me until I could barely breathe. They burned my house to the ground. They murdered Tom Bridger when he tried to help me, and they've gotten away with it because everyone in this town is too scared to stand up to them." "She's lying," Mason snarled, cradling his bleeding hand. "She's a crazy woman making false accusations." "Am I?" Anna challenged. She turned to face the crowd, to face all the people who'd watched and whispered but never acted. "Is that why I have bruises that match Mason Reed's knuckles? Is that why Dr. Walsh has documentation of every injury I sustained? Is that why my house is nothing but a burned foundation? You all know what happened. You all know what these men are capable of, and you've stayed silent because you're afraid." "And you're not afraid?" Cole asked coldly. "I'm terrified," Anna admitted. "But I'm more afraid of living in a world where men like you face no consequences, where violence and intimidation are rewarded, where justice is just a word that means nothing." For a moment, the saloon was silent again. Then a voice spoke up from the back, a voice Anna recognized. Sarah Mitchell, the woman who'd warned her, who'd stood up for her once before. "She's telling the truth," Sarah said, stepping forward. "I saw the Reed brothers' men leaving town the night her house burned. I saw them come back smelling of smoke and laughing about it." "That doesn't prove anything," Cole said, but there was an edge of panic in his voice now. "No." Another voice, this time belonging to the blacksmith, a huge man named Robert Hayes. "What about the time you burned out the Peterson family when they wouldn't sell, or the Mexican farmer you beat half to death over a property line dispute?" "We all remember, Mr. Reed. We've just been too scared to say anything." More voices joined in, people stepping forward with their own stories of the Reed brothers' crimes. It was like a dam breaking, years of fear and resentment pouring out all at once. And Cole and Mason could only stand there watching their carefully constructed empire of intimidation crumble around them. Anna saw Ethan then standing near the bar, and their eyes met. He gave her a small nod of approval and respect. She'd done it. She'd gotten them to reveal themselves, gotten the town to finally speak up. Sheriff Crawford burst through the saloon doors, his rifle in hand. "What the hell is going on here? Arrest them!" Anna said, pointing at the Reed brothers. "They've confessed to assault, arson, and murder, and there are 24 witnesses who just heard them." Crawford looked around the saloon at all the faces turned toward him expectantly. For once, he couldn't hide behind excuses or the Reed brothers' money. There were too many people watching too many witnesses. If he didn't act now, his credibility as a lawman would be destroyed forever. "Cole Reed, Mason Reed," Crawford said, his voice reluctant but firm. "You're under arrest for assault, arson, attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder. Put your hands up and come with me." Mason's hand went to his gun, but Cole grabbed his arm. "Don't," Cole said quietly. "Not here. Not now. We'll fight this in court. We'll get a lawyer. You'll hang," Anna said flatly, "because every person in this room is going to testify against you. And for once, money and influence won't be enough to save you." The Reed brothers were led out of the saloon in handcuffs, Mason still protesting, Cole silent and calculating. As they passed, Anna Cole leaned in close and whispered, "This isn't over. We have lawyers. We have judges in our pocket. You might have won the battle, but you won't win the war." "We'll see," Anna replied. After they were gone, the saloon erupted into conversation. People crowded around Anna, some congratulating her, others asking questions, a few apologizing for not speaking up sooner. It was overwhelming, the sudden shift from isolation to support, and Anna felt tears threatening again. Ethan appeared at her side, his hand gentle on her elbow. "You did it," he said quietly. "You actually did it." "We did it," Anna corrected. "I couldn't have survived this without you." "Yes, you could have," Ethan said. "You're the strongest person I've ever met, Anna Caldwell, but I'm glad I got to stand beside you anyway." Dr. Walsh pushed through the crowd, his medical bag in hand. "Miss Caldwell, let me look at your hand. That's glass embedded in your palm." Anna looked down and realized he was right. She'd been so focused on the confrontation that she hadn't noticed she was bleeding. Dr. Walsh led her to a table and began carefully removing glass shards and bandaging her hand. As he worked, people continued to approach, offering their support and their testimony. Sarah Mitchell hugged her tightly. "You're so brave. Your mother would be so proud." Robert Hayes promised to testify about everything he'd seen the Reed brothers do over the years. The preacher's wife offered Anna a place to stay while the legal proceedings played out. Others came forward with stories, with evidence, with a willingness to finally stand against the fear that had controlled them for so long. Anna had started something. By refusing to stay quiet, by refusing to accept injustice, she'd given other people permission to do the same. It was bigger than her now, bigger than her burned ranch or her personal vendetta. This was about changing a whole community, about breaking the cycle of fear that had allowed the Reed brothers to rule unchallenged. But the fight wasn't over. Cole had been right about that. The Reed brothers had money and lawyers and years of accumulated influence. The trial would be difficult, contentious, and far from guaranteed to go Anna's way. There would be appeals and delays and attempts to intimidate witnesses. The Reed brothers would use every trick and resource at their disposal to avoid conviction. Anna understood that. But she also understood that something fundamental had shifted today. The people of this town had found their voices. They'd seen that resistance was possible, that standing up to power didn't always mean destruction, and that knowledge once gained couldn't be taken away. 3 weeks later, Anna stood in the territorial courthouse, her hand on a Bible, and swore to tell the truth. The courtroom was packed with people, many of them prepared to testify against the Reed brothers. The prosecuting attorney was a serious man named James Whitfield, who'd come from the territorial capital specifically for this case. The federal marshal had gotten involved after hearing about the mass testimony at the saloon, and suddenly the Reed brothers' bought and paid for local connections didn't matter as much. Anna told her story from the beginning, the Reed brothers' threats, the attack, the fires, everything. She showed the courtroom her scars, the documentation of her injuries. She described Tom Bridger's attempt to help her in his subsequent murder. She held nothing back even when the Reed brothers' lawyer tried to paint her as a hysterical woman with a grudge. When she was finished, Ethan took the stand and corroborated everything she'd said. Then Sarah Mitchell testified. Then Robert Hayes. Then a dozen other townspeople, each adding their own pieces to the puzzle of the Reed brothers' corruption and violence. The defense tried to fight back. They brought character witnesses who swore the Reed brothers were upstanding citizens. They suggested Anna had caused her own injuries. They claimed Tom Bridger had been killed by bandits, not by the Reeds. They threw up every defense they could think of, grasping at straws and legal technicalities. But the evidence was overwhelming. The testimony was consistent, and most damning of all, Mason Reed lost his temper on the stand and admitted to teaching that Caldwell bitch a lesson she wouldn't forget. His lawyer tried to walk it back to claim it was taken out of context, but the damage was done. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. When they returned, the foreman stood and read the verdict in a clear, firm voice. "We find the defendants Cole Reed and Mason Reed guilty on all counts." The courtroom erupted. Some people cheered. Others wept with relief. The Reed brothers sat frozen, their faces pale with shock and disbelief. They genuinely believed they were untouchable, that their money and power would shield them from consequences. The reality of conviction hit them like a physical blow. The judge, a stern woman named Margaret Thornton, who'd presided with scrupulous fairness, waited for the courtroom to quiet. Then she delivered the sentences: 20 years in the territorial prison for Cole Reed, 25 for Mason Reed, given his role in Tom Bridger's murder. They would serve every day of those sentences, no parole, no early release. As the Reed brothers were led away in chains, Mason looked at Anna one last time. There was hatred in his eyes, but also something else, a grudging respect perhaps, or simply disbelief that a woman with nothing had managed to bring down his empire. Anna didn't look away. She held his gaze until he was gone, until the door closed behind him, and she knew she would never see him as a free man again. Only then did she allow herself to breathe, to relax, to let the reality of what had just happened sink in. It was over. After months of fear and pain and fighting, it was finally over. Ethan found her outside the courthouse, sitting on the steps in the afternoon sun. He sat down beside her, not speaking, just being present. After a while, Anna said, "I keep expecting to feel different, victorious or relieved or something, but I just feel empty." "That's normal," Ethan said. "You've been running on anger and determination for so long. Now that the fight's over, you don't know what to feel." "What do I do now?" Anna asked. "Where do I go? Who do I become when I'm not fighting anymore?" Ethan was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You become whoever you want to be. You're free now, Anna, truly free. The Reed brothers can't hurt you. Your father's legacy is honored. You stood up for what was right, and you won. Now you get to decide what comes next." "I don't have anything," Anna said. "My land is still gone. I have no money, no home, no prospects." "You have a lot more than that," Ethan said gently. "You have your courage, your integrity, your strength. And—" he hesitated, then continued, "and you have me if you want. I know this probably isn't the right time to say this, but I need you to know. These past weeks, standing beside you, watching you fight, I've fallen in love with you, Anna Caldwell. And if you'll have me, I'd like to spend the rest of my life making sure you never have to fight alone again." Anna turned to look at him. This man who'd saved her life, who'd stood beside her when no one else would, who'd risked everything for a stranger's cause. She saw the honesty in his eyes, the vulnerability of his confession, and she felt something warm unfurl in her chest, something she'd thought had died with her parents and her home. Hope. She felt hope. "I don't know if I can be what you need," she said. "I'm broken, Ethan, scarred inside and out. I don't know if I remember how to be anything except afraid and angry." "Then we'll figure it out together," Ethan said. "You're not broken, Anna. You're healing. There's a difference. And I want to be part of that healing if you'll let me." Anna thought about the ranch she'd lost, about her parents' graves beneath the cottonwood tree, about the life she'd planned that would never exist. She thought about all the reasons she should say no, all the ways this could go wrong. And then she thought about the alternative, walking away alone, spending the rest of her life defined by loss and trauma instead of by possibility and hope. "All right," she said. "Yes, I'd like that." Ethan smiled, a real smile, broad and genuine and full of relief. He took her hand, careful of her healing palm, and squeezed gently. "We'll start small. Find a place to settle. Build something new. Take our time." "Where?" Anna asked. "Where do we go?" "I don't know," Ethan admitted. "But I hear there's good land opening up in Colorado. Or we could try California. Or we could stay here and rebuild. It's up to you." Anna looked out at the town that had witnessed her destruction and her resurrection. Part of her wanted to leave to start fresh somewhere. Nobody knew her story. But another part of her wanted to stay to show everyone that she hadn't just survived, she'd thrived. "Let's stay," she said finally. "At least for a while. I want to rebuild my ranch. Not the way it was, but something new. Something that honors my parents, but also looks forward instead of back." "Then that's what we'll do," Ethan said. "Together." They sat there on the courthouse steps as the sun began to set, painting the Oklahoma sky in shades of red and gold. People passed by, some stopping to congratulate Anna, others simply nodding respect. She was no longer just a victim or a fighter. She was a woman who'd stood up to power, and one who'd transformed her pain into justice, who'd given a whole community the courage to speak truth. That evening, Sarah Mitchell hosted a dinner at her boarding house for everyone who'd testified. It was a celebration, but also a wake. They were mourning what they'd lost, the years of fear and silence, while also honoring what they'd gained. The room was full of laughter, and tears of stories shared and wounds acknowledged. Anna stood to speak, her voice carrying across the crowded room. "I want to thank all of you for standing with me. for finding your voices when it mattered most. What we did these past months, it wasn't just about bringing two bad men to justice. It was about reclaiming our dignity, about proving that ordinary people can stand against extraordinary power and win. She looked around the room at faces both familiar and new, at people who'd become allies and friends. My father used to say that the measure of a person isn't what they do when life is easy. It's what they do when everything's been taken from them and they have to choose between giving up or standing up. Well, we stood up. All of us. And we won. Never forget that. Never forget what we accomplished together. The room erupted in applause and Anna felt tears streaming down her face. But these were different tears, not tears of pain or fear, but of gratitude and pride, and something that felt almost like joy. Later, as the party was winding down, Ethan found her on the porch, looking up at the stars. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders. The evening had turned cool and stood beside her. "What are you thinking about?" he asked. "My parents," Anna said, "wondering if they can see this, if they know what happened, if they're proud." "They're proud," Ethan said with certainty. "How could they not be?" Anna leaned against him, allowing herself the luxury of being supported, of not having to stand alone. "I was so angry when this all started. Angry at the Reed brothers, angry at the world, angry at my parents for dying and leaving me alone. But now, I don't know. The anger's still there, but it's not everything anymore. There's room for other things too." "Like what?" Anna thought about it. "Like hope. Like the possibility of happiness. Like love." She turned to look at him. "I meant what I said earlier. I want to try this. Us. I want to see if I can build something good out of all this tragedy." "You already have," Ethan said. "You've built a community that's stronger for having fought beside you. You've built a legacy of courage that people will remember. And now you get to build a life. Our life. However you want it to look." They stood there together on the porch, two people who'd been broken by violence and loss, who'd found each other in the aftermath and discovered that broken things could still be beautiful. That scars told stories worth telling. That the end of one life could be the beginning of another. 3 months later, Anna stood on her land. The land her father had worked, the land her mother was buried on, the land she'd nearly died defending. The burned ruins of the house had been cleared away, and in its place a new foundation was being laid. It was a bigger house this time, with room for the family she hoped to build with Ethan. The barn was already rebuilt, full of horses, and the promise of new beginnings. Ethan came up beside her, his hands dusty from work. "What do you think the foreman says we'll have the frame up by next week?" Anna looked at the construction, at the people working, some hired hands, but also neighbors who'd volunteered their time. Sarah Mitchell was organizing food for the workers. Robert Hayes had donated timber. The whole community had come together to help her rebuild, to show that the bonds forged in their fight against the Reed brothers hadn't dissolved with the verdict. "I think it's perfect," Anna said. "I think it's exactly what it should be." She walked over to the cottonwood tree where her mother was buried and placed her hand on the rough bark. "I did it, Mama," she whispered. "I stood my ground. I didn't let them win, and I'm going to be okay, more than okay. I'm going to be happy." The wind rustled through the leaves, and Anna chose to believe it was her mother's approval, her blessing on all that was to come. That night, as the workers departed and the sun set over the prairie, Anna and Ethan sat on the porch of the temporary cabin they'd built. It was modest, just one room with a stove and a bed, but it was theirs, a place to rest and plan and dream about the future. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if I hadn't found you that day?" Ethan asked. "If I'd ridden past without stopping?" "I'd be dead," Anna said simply, "and the Reed brothers would still be terrorizing this territory. You changed everything, Ethan. You gave me a chance to fight back." "You would have found a way," Ethan said. "You're too stubborn to die quietly." Anna laughed, the sound surprising her with its ease. When had laughter become possible again? When had the weight of trauma lifted enough to allow joy back in? "Maybe," she said. "But I'm glad I didn't have to find out. I'm glad you stopped. I'm glad you stayed. I'm glad for all of it, even the hard parts, because they led me here. To this moment. To you." Ethan pulled her close, and Anna let herself be held, let herself feel safe in a way she hadn't since before her father died. The prairie stretched out before them, endless and beautiful under the stars, full of possibility and promise. She thought about the girl she'd been when this all started, frightened and alone, fighting to hold on to the past. And she thought about the woman she was becoming, scarred but strong, looking toward the future instead of being trapped in history. The transformation hadn't been easy. It had cost her almost everything. But sitting here now with Ethan's arms around her and her land stretching out before her and a community of allies at her back, Anna understood that she'd gained something too. She'd gained herself. Not the self she'd been before, but someone new. Someone forged in fire and tempered by justice. Someone who knew her own strength and wouldn't apologize for it. The Reed brothers had tried to break her. They'd beaten her, burned her home, destroyed her property, and hunted her across the territory. They'd done everything in their power to crush her spirit and take what was hers, and they'd failed. Anna Caldwell had stood her ground. She'd fought back with every tool available to her, her voice, her courage, her refusal to be silenced. She'd turned her pain into power and her isolation into solidarity. She'd proven that justice was possible, that ordinary people could stand against corruption and win. The scars would always be there, physical and emotional reminders of what she'd endured. But scars were proof of survival, evidence that wounds could heal. And Anna was healing now, slowly but surely, surrounded by people who cared about her, and building a life that honored both her past and her future. As the stars wheeled overhead and the prairie wind sang its ancient song, Anna closed her eyes and felt peace settle over her like a benediction. The fight was over. The hard part was done. Now came the even harder work of learning to be happy, to trust, to love without fear. But she wasn't afraid of that challenge. She'd faced worse and survived. She'd stood against men who wanted to destroy her and emerged victorious. Compared to that building, a life with someone she loved seemed almost easy. Almost. Anna smiled into the darkness, feeling Ethan's heartbeat steady against her back, and whispered a promise to herself and to the ghosts of her parents, and to the vast, indifferent prairie that had witnessed both her destruction and her resurrection. I will be happy. I will build something beautiful here. I will live a life worth fighting for. And somewhere in the night, carried on the wind, came what might have been an answer, a sense of approval, of blessing, of love that transcended death and time and all the cruelty the world could offer. Anna Caldwell had been broken. But she had refused to stay broken. She had stood up, fought back, and won. And now finally she was free to become whoever she chose to be. The West had tried to break her, but the West had given her back something too, a second chance, a new beginning, and the man who'd stood beside her through it all. In a land where survival itself was a victory, Anna had done more than survive. She had triumphed. And her story. The story of a woman who refused to bow, who stood tall even when beaten down, who turned trauma into justice and fear into courage, would be told for generations to come, inspiring others to stand up when it mattered most. That night, under the vast Oklahoma sky, Anna Caldwell finally allowed herself to rest. The fight was over, justice had been served, and tomorrow she would wake up and begin the beautiful work of living.